could be.
And we're live. Hello and welcome. It's Game Theory Gang 134. My name is Maddie Allen. My pronouns are yeehaw. And we got ChrispyMan of Hexfire.io. We got Fast Abdul and Kareem. Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back, I should say. And then excited to be here as always. We live in exciting times.
So hit the like and subscribe button, share this out, because this is going to be a good one. As always, another Tuesday night in the books. We've had Elon went up and saved people from space and then released some robots. And
that was sick.
What?
Oh, yeah, he caught a rocket after it launched. And
yeah, it's a pretty big deal, actually.
Caught it with his bare hands.
And
it's a pretty big deal, man. Things are happening.
It was the Falcon Heavy, and that was the first try they even did it. So it's for people who have seen this happen many times, this is the newly rocket, much bigger, and they caught it on the first try. Sick.
Hey, dude, man, this is part of the future, right? When they can launch rockets and autonomously, they can come back. They can start building in the necessary safety. Well, not that they haven't already. I mean, they've got to be pretty stable.
But I mean, they're moving like drones,
yeah.
With joystick and everything.
Hey, listen, before drones, a lot of these people watching this probably didn't know that drones weren't a thing. It was science fiction, could never be done. Well, same thing with these spaceships, man.
Just what they said about T-shares.
That's right. It can never be done again.
Yep. I think what I found fascinating about that, just to say a little bit, that I found very inspiring, I almost had a tear, is if you watch the video, just the response, how the lady is narrating the whole thing, and you watch the people at SpaceX be just they're so proud. They some of them couldn't believe it. Some like we did this. It's just that energy is wow. That's why innovation, it's so good, and I believe in something, And you can see them as a form of community too, because it's them against the world. People told them it would never be done, blah, blah, blah. And mind you, their cost, quick math, it's still 20 times over. Almost 22 times over less compared to NASA. So it cost NASA about $2 billion to do a rocket. Elon do a Falcon Heavy with 90 mil, launch it, done. And that's the Heavy, because the smaller one, the regular Falcon's 60 mil to do a launch. I mean, it's insane. And look at all the waste that's sitting in the Pacific Ocean, because it's the biggest ocean we have. Because that's back in the day. People don't know this. That used to be the deal. No big deal.
So are you saying with that economics comment that Elon would be really good at creating a Department of Government Efficiency?
Yes. Have you heard the latest?
AKA Doge?
Doge, but there's a new position about the cut. I forget the video. But Trump just said that recently. It's funny. We're going to have to create a new position. It's funny. But it's about cutting efficiency, something like that. In the cabinet. But yeah, he'll be good at that. I mean, listen, I think the country needs it. I think we all will benefit from it. And it's a no-brainer.
Speaking of cats and dogs, who do you got there, Fast Abdul?
Who that? It's a big one.
That's your pet dog? Is that your pet dog? Is that what they look like?
Cat. Don't tell me there's a meme coin named after him or her.
What Canadian cats look like. They got to be big enough so the Eagles can't get them.
Okay.
Nice. Nice necklace. Cat's got blings.
Yeah. It's going to be a Bitcoin symbol in the future, perhaps, or perhaps a hex symbol we could get for her. That'd be nice.
You go.
Very cool.
She's mad though.
Yeah, and then market is doing some cool stuff. Obviously, I think of it like this is the textbook pre-pump running to the elections. You know what I mean? The bull flags are in position. We're all looking good. It's just a matter of now just wait and see. And I think the market is not to be too political, but the market is starting to price in Trump victory potential, because obviously he's leading. So which will be good. But like I told everybody, they're going to print money. So be prepared. It's either going to be, typical bad rumor, sell the news. They're going to run it all the way to election and then trying to crash it after that, pull back, or it's just, straight win, no issue, no headache, no World War III, and then up and to the right until the end of the year and moving into 2025, which would be nice. So either way, we're looking good.
I actually I made some friends at the crypto conference I was just at. Some really good friends
nice.
with some guys who they were standing next to Trump whenever he got shot in the ear. And now they've dedicated their lives to, like, you know, fighting for the truth in the media and that sort of stuff. Created a super PAC, and they invited me to Madison Square Garden to the last Trump rally right before the Hex hearing. So,
oh wow,
I of course said yes. And you know, so
hey, networking is good always.
Yeah, if you see like a Pulse Chain T-shirt, you know, in the front row, you'll.
So it's safe to say you're gonna be there like a little bit early before the thing, because I'm going. By the way, me and John will go.
Yeah, this event apparently is on the 27th. So yeah, nice. I'll be there like 4 days early.
Perfect. Yeah, we're gonna be there because I still do some work here. We're gonna be there about 2 days early, just to make sure you set up, and then I'll hang out with some Mexicans too. But then I just can't wait. I heard there's almost 200 plus people. So from the SJ post that I saw.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
I'm excited. That's coming up in like 2 weeks, huh?
Exactly. And then you know, for me, the cool little updates was, you know, over the last week. That's why I went to Miami, you know, celebrated a birthday, an important birthday. That was cool. And proud to report that, yeah, you know, I made a post about it. I pretty much almost paid back all the loans besides one. So it's awesome.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah,
well done.
Selling, you know, I mean, staying quiet, but just doing the work. That's what I've been doing the past, 2 months, roughly, ever since I got here. And I still do every day, you know, when I'm not like, you know, doing streams and like that. So, and I throw in there, you know, bonuses in there, you know, nice yield, API interest for the trust and the vibe. And so, yeah, I made a post about that. That was awesome. And, you know, shout out to everybody again that helped in any capacity. And those donates, you already know, it's like you have a special place in my heart. And don't forget, we will have our golden yacht in 2035, our party. That's going to be lit for that too. But yeah, glad to be able to do that because I felt good.
Amazing. Yeah. You're a man of your word. And everybody is really happy that the community came together. The people who were hating, you know.
Oh, they're quiet now.
Yeah.
They went back to their hole.
Yeah. We're better off without, you know, like without the hate, you know, people can disagree with us, and we actually encourage that on the show. But, yeah, in terms of the hate, exactly. I'm really impressed by this community. I don't think there's any other crypto community that comes together like we do. So,
amen. And I can't wait the judge to see that when we're going to pull up, you know what I mean? Because the plan is that, what I plan at least, is that not only we're going to be there representing the community, but, you know, pay attention and answering questions and basically showing all the people around the world, because we're going to be recording stuff too, that like we're the real deal. We're not bots, just like we've been saying for years. And more importantly, like there's nothing quote unquote legally wrong here. You know, we knew what we were doing. We're all adults. We knew what we sacrificed into. We knew what we got into when we decided to get into Hex. You know what I mean? So, and yeah, we read all the footnotes, and more importantly, leave our founder alone. So
that'll be said like through the context rather than explicitly. In the courtroom, yeah, everybody will be like, you know, super silent and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I was going to ask if Kareem can get like super teary and do a parody of the "Leave Britney Alone." Leave Richard alone, please. Leave Richard alone.
Oh, we're definitely going to do that outside of court. But the actual court date, this is not determining anything more than the arguments being presented about jurisdiction. And the SEC has failed so far to even, you know,
what's their score?
Even prove jurisdiction.
0.0.
And that's quite a place to be in a case where
it's like a hearing, pretty much. Like even me, right? Fun fact, I'm out, but mine is still going. Mine is virtual, and it's actually October 25th. Funny enough, it used to be the same date of the event, but now that they moved it to Halloween, which was very slick, by the way. But anyway, we'll be there. Then I have mine too. So there's a chance that obviously this thing continues, but nonetheless, it's an important hearing because, like Maddie was saying, and people were saying before too, if we get it to that motion to dismiss, that's a major step just to speed up the process.
It'll be interesting to see if we find out a couple weeks after the court date, or if the judge will take the full time of whether it's 60 or 90 days afterwards. But we do have a Hex conference online that happens every year, January 6th through 9th. We're gonna have our fifth one here at the beginning of the new year in 2025. And so wouldn't it be something if we found out by then that that the case was thrown out? That'd be pretty cool.
And everything is done if that gets thrown out, right? Like then there's no case. It's at zero. Everything's dropped. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, if we can get that point. And that's the reason why, to begin with, Richard wanted to fight it, rightfully so, because it's about what the precedent can be set for. Because it's easy to say, actually, to say, hey, let me just settle whatever, because SCs are like bullies. Everybody knows that, right? That's kind of their goal. They kind of shoot here, make the noise to make you crumble, and then just settle with them. But the problem with that is that even though admitting in guilt, you indirectly are saying, oh, I did something wrong, and they can use that for future stuff. Versus when you fight and then you win, it's like, it's not you being stubborn. It's like you're making sure it's clear there's no precedent, so that next time around, if you're trying to sue me, so to speak, you can't sue me for the same thing that has already been clearly addressed. So I think, and that's the real value that most people need to understand. It's not so much about, oh, why can't we just settle and move on? Like, no, this fight is good. It's a good fight to set the right.
I think Kraken was the company that had like settled with the SEC, and then the SEC immediately brought another case against them, like just to be dicks.
Yeah,
so,
we're not gonna fall for that trick.
And then it's like the Uniswap team, they screwed over Hex and still falsely claim that they stand for decentralization, which they don't. Gatekeeping Hex and taking away the buy button and the sell button, just like Robinhood did with Citadel and all of that corruption. But so Uniswap
to them too.
Part of the reason that they may have done that is because the SEC, before going after Uniswap, named the Uniswap developers in Northern New York as part of the jurisdiction because they were grasping at straws about the jurisdiction for Richard Hart and Hex. They claimed that these developers that had nothing to do with Richard, that was part of the basis for them even choosing the Northern District of New York as where they would bring the case. Whereas anybody who watches Law & Order SVU or like the news or anything knows that the number one place that the government usually tries their cases is the Southern District of New York.
Exactly.
And so it's particularly interesting that their case is so weak for jurisdiction that they had to name the Uniswap developers as part of why Hex and Richard Hart are like supposed to answer, to the U.S.
It goes back to also what Marco was saying, one of the video that I caught up on, which is why I'm very confident that's going to go well, is that the lawyers are already confident into the case. In other words, I believe that whether we show up there or not, this or that, this is going to go in the right direction. It's just a matter of just how long it gets dragged. Now, if we as a community can help shorten the time frame by being there, by showing what's already clearly obvious, but to the judge, the older judge that literally, instead of a he said, she said, now she can see member of the community being here. Now it's like, oh, wow, it's even more real. It's not just lawyer talk. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, it's literally a waste of taxpayer money. And then at that point, sometimes the good judge, especially, they will get embarrassed in a sense where they're like, what are we doing here? There is no real case. And that's why I'm glad that we're going to go there, obviously presentable, quiet, all that good stuff. But just to show face, it goes a long way. And that's why I'm glad that they even, ask of us, because we always look at it, hey, how can we help? So that's really good.
Yeah.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
So, Maddie, have you ever ridden a horse?
Oh yeah.
Okay, right on. Very good.
And like I don't know how to like word this non-awkwardly. I've ridden a horse like without a saddle. And then I've also gone swimming with horses because
nice.
I dated an equestrian in college. So
Oh wow!
Quite
Look
an
at
ambition.
you. That's awesome. Yeah. I didn't do the swimming part, but I've rode horses before too on an excursion on the island. It was one of those cool things you could try. It's fun. It's fun, and obviously back home too.
I think the swimming is actually super dangerous.
Yeah, right. In case you, but hey, first of all, learn how to swim
you have to
yourself.
know what you're doing. Well, the horses and you both have to know what you're doing. Like the horses I got to ride were like, you know, they're throwing you off and you're getting back on, like, you know, really, you know,
Cowboy
type of stuff. But
not fully trained.
I got feedback at the conference that people thought with like the hexagonal tie and like this cowboy hat, people thought that maybe I was an oil baron.
Okay.
And I didn't know if like there's some sort of like secret language of cowboy hats. I'm not sure, but it looks like you have one too.
I have a lot of.
You ride stallions? Is that what you're saying?
So I think there's like there's like whole clubs of like different styles of cowboy hats.
Nice.
But you know, the most famous crypto person to wear a crypto hat is Jimmy Song. When I ran into him at the Bitcoin conference my first year, he was the only one who was incredibly rude to me about the fact that I was wearing Hex stuff. And so now I will take over his identity and you know, become the best cowboy hat wearer in crypto.
That's only fair. Yeah. It's yours now. You're an oil baron, and you get that guy's followers. It makes sense.
I mean, it was kind of interesting. Like the more conferences I go to and the more time passes, the more people are open to hearing about Hex and Pulse Chain, you know, depending on like what the audience is. But yeah, it's going in the right direction. That's for sure. And there are still a lot of people, they don't know why, you know, it's such a bad word to say Hex or Pulse Chain. And, you know, so I gave them the social grace of saying, it's okay to be a maximalist in Bitcoin and Ethereum. The reason why Hex and Pulse Chain are not loved by all is because it was a vampire attack against Bitcoin and a vampire attack against Ethereum. And so it's okay if, you know, people aren't into it, but, you know, people can see there's a lot of good people here and we have the strongest community by a lot of different social metrics. So those are all good talking points for sure.
I would dare to say vampire attack against Bitcoin. Yeah, perhaps because of the free claim, but against Ethereum, I don't think so. Matter of fact, I dare to say we help Ethereum. We were the one buying a crazy amount of Ethereum because, like myself, who didn't have any Bitcoin to free claim, that was the coin we had to buy in order to buy Hex. If it wasn't for that, if it was USDC or whatever, trust me, we would have done that too. One of the early run-up Ethereum, everybody knows, is because that was the coin you have to buy the other coin. There was no major stable coin and stuff like that. And when we made Uniswap popular as a community, that was also a good narrative for ETH as a whole and DeFi and, you know, and then yes, the fee sucked, but thank God we were more like, you know, long-term believer in stakers and stuff like that. So if anything, we really, really, really like helped a lot Ethereum. We don't get a lot of credit for that. But
but Pulse Chain is a bit of a vampire attack on Ethereum in that they copied the entire system state, brought whatever that value was to Pulse Chain, and have much cheaper gas fees, like 1,000 times cheaper. So I think it's and obviously moved a lot of the Hex-based transactions to the Pulse Chain. Even eHex is there's a lot more liquidity on the Pulse chain that's been bridged over than there is on Ethereum.
But the way it was presented, though, like, because if you remember back in the day, the presentation matters. If you say, hey, Ethereum sucks with a better Ethereum, blah, blah, blah. Remember, I'm an OG from the EOS days because that was the story. And then you go back, then, yeah, that's shame on you. We presented it more like, no, we do a copy system state to saying we're here to supplement. We're here to help. We're here to lower the gas fee. If it was pure vampire attack, we would have just said, you know what? Why are we even bothering copying all the systems? I think Ivan on Tech and some of the top dev, they were the ones who complained, but like, wow, you know how much work that is to do a copy system, say all the things you have to download back in. I remember back in the day with Firebond, just when they had to speed up the archive node and how long it took just to download all of that. That's a lot of work. Things that the real vampire attack people, they didn't even need to do. They just create a coin, come here, let's go, steal the money, and then run. Like, there was no actual hard work besides, copying, double click, and leave.
Yeah, there's actual infrastructure there for sure. Like an archive node would take probably a month to download or something to be able to launch.
Yeah, or more. If you download the whole blockchain history.
Everything Kareem is saying is true. And at the same time, you have to remember that the context of Permissionless 3 conference in Salt Lake City is it's organized by the Bankless boys who run the largest Ethereum YouTube show out there. And you might remember that David Hoffman, he was the one who cried on his own channel, not a little bit, but a lot, had tears flowing down his face, real tears, when Richard Hart said hi to him in the comments, because they were so convinced that Richard and Hexicans had ruined crypto, although they were the ones promoting FTX and we were the ones speaking against it. Somehow Hex was the problem. So just acknowledging it was a vampire attack, and now everybody can just get along, I think is one way to put it. But of course, people who know the full history, do know part of the design intention was to decrease the gas fees on Ethereum, because Hex was continuing over and over again to take up so much of the fees, and to, that was bad for everybody, really.
Yeah, and another thing too, when you go back to the essence of blockchain, the essence of, you talk about Web3, you talk about decentralization, you're talking about how something is open source. If you're that worried about it, then why'd you open source it? That's number one. Number two, people acting like it's something that's new that Hex did. Like, no, it's like, well, assuming we're doing the vampire thing, it's like Richard said it best. He applied strategy that works, right? They say copy sometimes is the best form of flattery. Like, if it wasn't something that was done before that worked efficiently, he wouldn't have done it, or create an incentive, because that's another key point too. We got to be careful with the words. It's not like we did how you create an incentive, but then people are free to choose. There's many people, Matty, you know this. There's many people that did not free claim, that just stay in their ground. Part of the reason why we got this amazing big payday bonus is because not everybody free claim. I think it was about 3% and change. Now, in its own right, it's very successful.
But that was a record. That was the largest claim that any Bitcoin project had. Correct.
Exactly. But my point is, although that was a record on its own, which is good, they're acting, the people playing victim are acting like everybody switched. Like, no, people, like you perfectly said, Ethereum community got hurt more in the Celsius of the world, the FTX of the world, the thing that that Hex was designed actually so that you don't have to go over there. So in other words, you're saying we vampire attack you for 3-4%, but we save those people, versus you guys got vampire attacked by those third-party company, because it's almost the same thing, because capital being deployed, capital being moved somewhere else that then steals the money. Right, so you can say it's a form of vampire attack too, because they're playing the card of, oh, we're better, we're institution, we're safe, we all this crap, when you're not, and then you're even misguiding people by saying you're doing something that you're not. Oh, you don't even know where the yield come from, and all this other stuff. And then at the end of the day, all your followers and people, they lose all their money. So it's actually even said, that's why I push back, because it's like, it's even fair to say, had those people went into Hex instead, they wouldn't have suffered the same thing. So.
Actually, it's weird because FTX ended up being like over collateralized, even though they weren't liquid and even though they were committing fraud. Like the amount of money they were able to sell all the assets for is making everybody whole. Whereas like with Hex, the price went up so much and now down so much. Having your money in FTX actually would have been a better deal.
Again,
believe it or not.
We're playing the game of time. At the time, it didn't. The same way, we're going to have the same conversation 6 months, a year from now, and we can say something else. And I can talk about the extra yield that I collected during the time that I was waiting. So again, we can cherry pick time frame, but at the time, when you lose everything, because those people were playing short-term game and liquid game, so chances are they would not hold their Hex liquid or do short-term stakes. They have not lost all their money, bear market start. Maybe they just cash out and go to USDC, like many people did. The chart didn't, guys. The chart didn't go down by itself. People cashed out. Big money. Okay? This is pure DeFi we're talking about. This is not exchange with spoofing or whatever. Chart don't go up by themselves and they don't go down by themselves, right? It needs to be purchased to go up. It needs to be sold to go down. If nothing happened, the chart stay where it's at. So that's kind of the slippery slope between the two. But ultimately, again, it was a strategy used that wasn't invented by Hex. It was a strategy used that was working. The same way Richard famously said, you got to learn how to update your worldview, because we used to be like, oh my God, NFT, this, that, and stuff that don't work. But you can't ignore the fact that you can dislike something, but if it has a strategy and capital going towards that, you can say, I don't like it, but you can't ignore the fact that the strategy is working on its own, for its own right. And then now you have to decide, do I just stick to my belief, or do I kind of find a way to incorporate that into something that's good? Because if scammers are using something and then hurt people, but you don't want people to get scammed, that's why Richard used the word scam-like tactics, so that people get into something good instead of doing nothing, complain, and people keep losing their money. That was
like FTX was mostly like a leverage exchange type thing. So all right, out of like all of us here on screen, who thinks combined Hex is going to do a new all-time high?
When?
Before the end of this cycle?
Yes, I believe it. 100%.
Which is the end of 2025.
End of 2025? You said combined Hex, right?
Yep.
Yes. Buy
with yield. Let's make it easier.
That's too easy.
Staked.
Yeah, all day, every day, all day, every day.
Okay, well that's
I believe
what, a 25x from here or something.
And possibly more too. We're talking end of the year and the whole year of 2025.
With
correct?
Staking, maybe a 20x.
Easy.
Guess who has that data?
See,
I have that data.
About the future?
I do. Well,
no, you can show you with the exponential growth
with the X's might be.
Because when you say combined, oh my God, it's crazy. Because again, besides the one that I nuked, like my stakes are mirrored, so it's like full.
Does anybody not think?
I don't think when I can try
that it's going to do a new all-time high.
I like that.
I thought you meant
like that. People are like, it's not gonna happen. We're just moon boy. I like that. You need the disbelief. It's called disbelief rally for a reason. Me, I just believe it. I saw too much evidence. But then again, that's just me.
So I put it up on the screen here. The combined Hex, right? Prices together, just about 34x to all-time highs. And so if we weren't talking about Hex and people didn't have all these emotions tied up into it, you were just talking to somebody, you're doing the degen thing, and they're like, I have this token and it's going to do 30x. You'd be like, I'm not even interested in that, maybe, because 30x isn't very much. I mean, this is crypto. But we talk about Hex and people go, oh, no way. It's only a 60x to a dollar. It's only
really
a 60x to a dollar. So I just threw it out there.
Yeah, good. Maddie, watch this. And I waited for this first before even explaining, because I didn't want to create any biases. I wanted to see where people are at. Now, what people know me for primarily is like, I don't just talk to talk. I like to bring reference and some degree of explanation, logic, and math behind what I'm saying, right? Because again, I want to be very specific. I'm not just saying that to be all
I don't have to take that personally, do I?
No, of course not. No, I'm just saying like why I believe it's gonna happen by
Oh
the
yeah,
end.
yeah, please do.
Yeah, you know
Please
what I
do.
mean. And by the way, you can say you believe, or because I wasn't sure if you said something because when he asked you, you didn't say nothing. So, but the reason why I believe it is because I'm just going back on what has happened. And again, shout out to Chris because this data right in front of me, we're gonna be able to help, like, explain what I'm about to say. When we came from the low, right, just recently, as soon as I got out of the whole gel situation, we just did roughly about a 400%, right? And the reason I say roughly is to make it easier, the math. Let's do again, like you said, the combined hex, right? One was around exactly. One was the low was around 0.004, and the other was like 0.001. So let's just say about half of a penny combined, right? Then we kind of run to about 2 cents when you combine the two. Okay. Now that's 400%. But if people remember about how hex works and how also, with the Uniswap formula, it moves as a function of a square. But then also as the coins are being removed, when something goes exponential, the hardest part is the beginning. It's the getting off the ground, kind of like a rocket. When you do 400% from the ground, when the liquidity, the number of coin is heavier, there's a lot more coin. There is about probably roughly, don't quote me on this, maybe Crispy has the data, but there was roughly about 2 billion hex sitting in the bid orders. A little bit
like
over
a rocket that you catch and relaunch.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So now we're roughly about that 2 cents mark
It's
combined
real,
hex. Yeah. About that 2 cents hex, we got that roughly, about a billion or less than a billion hex in the pool. What does that mean is that as the buying pressure comes in, believe it or not, it becomes easier and easier to run higher to do those X's. And especially if the big players are understanding, all right, the trend is going back in the right direction, assuming also we get rid of the bank hex load, which again, I can see that easily happen before the end of the year, assuming we get good results with the court case. So again, I'm putting an if on that. If not, it's definitely going away by before the end of mid 2025. The whole thing's they can go away overnight if the price is just where they need to be because they're desperate. They need the money. It's the same thing when I talk about ETFs and ETF flows. It's like sometimes you don't see the flow or you see a major outflow, but make no mistake, the inflow can just come back overnight like nothing, which has happened last week. That's why we're seeing at 67,000 plus Bitcoin right now, because in the last 2 days, $800 million inflow just came in 2 days. So it's like, because the money is already here. That's what people don't understand. It's on-demand fucking liquidity. It's here. It just wait for an event or something to trigger, and then boom, it floods in. The same way we see with the big money, they see our election up. It looks like Trump's gonna win. It looks like he's not gonna get assassinated in the next 2 weeks. It looks like Kamala is not doing well. Every time she opens her mouth and do live interview, the polls goes down. So again, I'm just trying to be fact-based. Big investor, they look at that. Oh, and also it looks like Federal Reserve is doing good. The unemployment rate is not as bad, so it's under control. The interest rates are stabilized. They're trending down, but they're doing, like I've always talked about, they're doing the slow grind. They're not puking overnight. That's all those things create stability. So we don't worry about the Japanese carry trade also. So all those things give investors the ability to say, you know what? We're getting to that security that we're looking for. Let's go and deploy capital. It's the same thing with Hex. People who've been Hex long enough, they understand what we have done. So what I'm saying is that 400%, which happened literally in 3 weeks, it's like it was the hardest that we could, because we get off the ground. The next 400%, believe it or not, assuming all those big players don't sell and then the nefarious big player like bank Hex are removed, the people coming in, they're getting a new cost basis. The big players are not selling, so they're not going to really affect the price. Then everybody knows the number one advertiser is green candle. FOMO kicks in. People coming in. As the people come in, remember, the liquidity gets lower and lower. Next thing you know, there is now, like I said, 1 billion Hex in the pool. Then it's going to be 500 million Hex in the pool. So now all of a sudden, for every extra 2 to 3 to 5 million that comes in, the green candle gets bigger and bigger. You get another wave like that, 400%, because Hex loves to do those moves, 400% at a time within 3 weeks period. He goes on those run, right? So now, quick math. Next thing you know, 400% from 2 pennies, boom, we're at 8 penny. Maybe blow off top at 10 cents. Retrace to 7, 6, whatever. Then do the bull flag again. Flag 7, 8 stays there. Next thing you know, runs another 400% move. We've seen it. It goes where? It goes 25 cents. That's what Hex love to do.
I think what people don't understand is liquidity. All right, Kareem. And so what I mean, and look, listen, it's hard for me to get my head around it too. It took a long time. And who knows if I'm even right? But to back you up, there's about 1 billion hex available, both hexes, on the market. Now that could be a little higher. Maybe the PHUX stuff, they're fast. There's more out there, but I mean, there's probably not another billion. Maybe there's a couple 100 million, right? So there's a limited amount that people have put up for sale.
Exactly.
All right. And that's key. This is a key point, right? Because probably, well, I don't know, maybe Fast has 1 billion in his back pocket, but I'm guessing we here on this show don't have 1 billion to put up. And so what happens when somebody buys 100 million or they buy 200 million, right? Exactly. It goes down. And so supply and demand kicks in, and that's exactly what you're talking about.
Amen. And that's really the beauty. Not only it's not available, and those who even have hundreds of millions, whatever, the most part of it is stake. You know what I mean? And again, I speak of it, like even taking myself as account, right? Everybody knows
a lot.
Like Dream account has over 200 million hex in it. But again, it's stake average 10, 15 years. It's not coming down anytime soon. So what that tells you is that, like Crispy's been saying, it's like what's available is very, very thin. I remember the days when we had 6 billion hex sitting in the pool. Like it was nothing, because we used to, when the price was much lower, obviously, but we used to have a lot more flow because so many people have liquid. A lot of that liquid hex has been sacrificed also. Let's not forget that during the whole sacrifice phase, because excluding the OA, the number one coin what was used was hex, even though OA also sacrificed hex as well. But let's just say we exclude that. Even as a community as a whole, excluding OA, the number one coin that was used for sacrifice was hex. So when you know there's not that many available, when you know that the staking average continue to rise, when you know the fact that when real FOMO kicks back in, because people get that good PTSD that, oh, this is the hex we're talking about. Oh, I've heard or I've seen what he has done before. I missed the first train. The train came back to the station. According to Maddie, the rocket came back, got caught, and we can relaunch.
So here's the big criticism, right? The naysayers are going to say this: there's too many people with too much hex. They're going to sell on you. They're not wrong, right? That will happen. But here's the thing: is you can't underestimate how much people want mad gains,
exactly.
Right? And so I mean, it's complicated, right? But here's the thing: up market, what do market makers do? Their job is to supply just enough hex to allow the price to continue to go up, right? That's how it works, right? And that could mean, we see increasing amounts of liquidity, but at different price levels, and eventually the market makers can't keep up, and then the market turns, right? And then their job is to take it off the market as it goes down. Anyways, I agree with you 100%, Kareem. I mean, what you're dealing with is people being afraid that somebody's going to pull the rug out from them, and they're trying to balance that against their, I don't want to call it greed because it's not the right word for it, but the idea they want max gains, right? I want max gains. Yes. So a lot of people won't even sell. I mean, was a 5x not enough? Apparently not, right?
Exactly. It's because most people who are afraid, it's not their fault, is they don't study incentive. It's the same thing when people don't understand math, they don't understand like risk tolerance, and they don't understand how to even assess risk. I use this easy example, and I'm about to explain for most people, right? When people realize like, oh, you can potentially 100x something, okay? And this example I'm about to give, just forget for 2 seconds that I'm going to mention leverage, but it's not for you to go gamble. It's just to understand just how risk assessment works. Something can be literally have 100x leverage on it, very quote unquote risky. And something could just be like, oh my God, this is super safe, da da da. And then what most people would do, let's say if you have $10,000, they will go and you have to invest it. They will put, $9,000 or $8,000 into the safe thing, and then watch the safe thing actually pull back 30%, 40%, which, it could happen. And then somebody else who literally understand risk assessment will be like, all right, I'm going to put just $100 over there in the very risky thing. But because I understand risk assessment, I'm not looking at what I can gain. I'm looking at how much can I lose. So then I put $100. if 100x, that $100 turns into 10K, I literally just double my money. If I lose, which could happen, I'm only losing $100. I still have $9,800. Versus the other person will be like, oh, this is safe, I'm going to go over there. But then if it goes down, they're going to lose more than the person that just loses $100. And this is just an example to explain how risk assessment is, what asymmetrical risk reward is. Okay. That's what I preface this, because I don't sponsor gambling and all that kind of stuff. But that was just pure risk assessment mathematics. Now, we adjusted that back into Hex and understanding the risk was greater when the price was much lower, when the price was near quote unquote zero or all-time low, because people be like, oh, what if it's a falling knife? What if this and that and the third? Now that it has shown that, oh, it's making higher lows. Oh, it looks like it's going in the right way. Oh, it flips green on the super trend. Oh, now all of a sudden the traders start getting involved again. Now all of a sudden people who are risk averse now are getting in. It's actually mathematically in terms of risk assessment becoming less risky. So in other words, even though we talk about bigger number, it's easier mathematically to get to those bigger number versus getting from that where we were to the 2 cents. Because at that time, so much more liquidity, so much more paranoia. What if it's another falling knife? What if it makes another new low? Versus, hey, we're trending in the right way. We're making high highs, high lows. Case get dismissed. Bull market is full on. Bitcoin trends towards 100K. Ethereum trends back towards 4K. Nobody's going to be worried about, oh, this, that. They're going to be like, how soon can I get in before this thing goes back to its all-time high? That's how this works. And that's where risk assessment and understanding asymmetrical risk reward is really the key. The same way those of us who understand the value of staking, because we've done the math. We understand I can make a trade and make money, but in a balanced probability over a long period of time, the more you trade, the more likely you will lose. Versus I can stake and chill. And in the long run, I will be do whole. Again, it's a game of understanding the incentive.
Nothing has gone up as much as Hex, then down as much, and then made a new all-time high. It's never happened. So we're gonna see if history gets made here in the next year and a quarter.
Year and a quarter.
Well,
I think almost Tron qualified for that.
It's certainly possible that we're going to see multiple dollar PX, right? Guaranteed? No. Possible? Yes. Yeah, of course it's possible.
Because nothing's guaranteed. Life is not guaranteed. You can get hit by a car tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's
Talk some sense into us, Fast Abdul.
Well, I figure that the price is going to do what the price is going to do. But probably it's going to go up. Not financial advice.
Yeah, man. Hey, all signs point to up into the right.
Yeah. And Maddie, another incentive that Hex has for those who forgot, and Crispy has the data for it, because that's what we used to show all the time, is that we can show behavior of humans and stakers. The higher the price goes, the more people want to stake, because they realize how valuable their T-shares are, because also how expensive they become. And now you're less of a trader, because when the price was lower, let's say you have enough that you are happy to make, $5K a month doing your little trading, and you had just give you an example. You had your $20,000 stack, and you're doing your trading, and you trade Hex on whatever, and then you make 5K. Now all of a sudden, price do that 300-400% that we're talking about, and now you're at 80K, 100,000. Obviously, you believe in it long term, but now you start to realize that just with staking alone, you start getting to the area where, oh wow, I can get that $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 without doing nothing, just by staking. Now all of a sudden, you naturally want to trade less, because now the incentive is starting to change. Incentive recalibrate to your need, keyword, to your need, because your number was 5K a month. That was your lucky number. That's what I told people. Just like how people buy $1 million house. They don't look at it, oh my God, my house is worth millions. They look at it, hey, what's the monthly payment? What's the mortgage? That's how they factor affordability. So if the assets, the T-shares, right, the income generating assets gets to a point where the person's needs are met, all of a sudden trading becomes irrelevant to that individual. Now, as the price continues to rise, a lot of those individuals are going to start hitting their target. And as they hit their target, and again, I was here, I witnessed it, I seen it. It wasn't like, oh my God, just wishful thinking. I've seen it. It's going to start now shooting the price even faster because even the occasional trader stopped trading because he's staking, and also because he has a bigger fear. The same way you get to a point where the fear of being out is greater than the fear of being in. When in a bear market, oh my God, I need to get out. But when the bull market comes to really go, the fear reverse. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, what if I miss another full 500%? What if all this stuff?
Yeah.
And at the same time, my monthly needs are met. Then the person just prefer to chill.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we have going on too, and I have to mention it because we're in the final hours for Quattro Cinco for 2039. Today is the last day that people can get their stakes, and I believe you still make them today between now and 4 zeros.
Nice.
0000. Your end date will be December 31st, 2039. So we're just closing it out just above 35,000 T-shares. So I'm very excited for the community, for the people who've gotten in and have done this, for the ones who are interested in long-term strategy. So I'm pretty excited about that. However, I do see that long-term staking is still at a pretty big downtrend. However, we are seeing more staking. People are just staking short. They're speculating.
Yield farming is at an up though, right? More people are yield farming X than ever before. So the Ink token's future could paint the same picture that you just painted, Kareem, where people are having their monthly needs met by yield farming with Hex or other pulse chain assets, rather than staking, or as well as staking. Absolutely. Which of course leaves more on the
but
table.
It's not without risk.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. For the pros.
And, I mean, staking Hex in the first place has a risk, right? I mean, there is a risk there. Now, based on 5 years of operation, we don't think there's a third party risk, right? From the contract.
Yeah, smart contract risk,
et cetera. But there's always a risk, price is always a risk. But when we go to farming and whatnot, there's no guarantee. I mean, I have no reason to suspect that somebody would pull down a farm, particularly off of PulseX, but there's no guarantee that the farms will stay there. And there's no guarantee that the patterns of trading will remain, that LP will be there. And even though I love you guys, right, there's no, at $2, there's no guarantee there'll be incentivized pools, and 9-inch, there's no guarantee,
that's right,
et cetera, et cetera. And so with Hex, it's a little bit different. I have had to come to the conclusion, yes, there are people that do things with Hex, and that's what I teach a lot about, but that they're able to make gains in other ways, but it is with additional risk, right?
Exactly.
Even if most people probably don't feel like it's a lot, but that's kind of like it's kind of an asymmetrical type of thing too.
I think I could argue for like just playing devil's advocate that it's different risk, right?
Yes.
Yeah, different for sure.
Like you're saving yourself from yourself with Hex if you do a stake, because you'll be unable to, or disincentivized to end that stake early. But like there's a different risk to being locked than not locked. And, so most people I suspect would be do well to approach any situation with moderation. So like have a staking ladder, do some yield farming. What about that idea?
Yeah, faster do. Remember a couple weeks back when I first got, remember I told you, and that was the key because the wording matters, right? I told people it's a trade-off. And that's why I was telling people, because the haters are coming for no reason. I'm like, they're missing the point. They thought it was a comparison. Oh, this good, this bad. No, it's just a trade-off. And once people understand, like Chris was saying, what entails the trade-off, now they can make an educational decision. Because I think they're both important. But it's no good when the person don't understand the trade-off, because now you're signing up for something that you didn't fully understand what the goods and bads are. And then now when you start doing something you didn't expect, now all of a sudden you're like, oh, what the hell did I get myself into? And then I love the fact that you guys are tracking both of those data. And it goes back to what I was saying just earlier, where the price is relatively low compared to what it was before. So I actually expect people right now, technically, to stake a little bit shorter than longer. When I say people, I'm talking about the masses. The wise, smart investor, no matter what, will always do the long term right after the get-go. Why? Because before he even gets involved, he's going to do all the research, all the due diligence, go down the rabbit hole like I've done. Versus other people be like, I know enough to hear that this is a good thing. The community sounds cool. I want to try it out, but I don't know all the ins and outs yet. I'm still in training. Remember, I could just do people this level, right? When I was talking Dream Account, I was telling people, relax, this level, learn it more, know about yourself, know about your discretionary income, because don't go level 4 to be cool. Oh, I'm like Kareem, but then you don't understand what that entails, what that means, and then you're going to screw yourself. Start level 1, learn it, understand the trade-off, and then gradually move up. The same way, I promise you, when people start to increase, they go back to that. Maybe they start with 5, 10K. Now they're 6 figure. Now they're 500,000, a million. Now the story changed because it's more valuable. The T-share loss is now a big deal. You have to worry about that.
Oh, God, it's so hard to keep up with it.
Yeah. When that short-term stakes are ending and you have now a bigger stack or whatever, now you can actually afford to stake longer because you have more coins, better capital. You can start to play a little bit different because when you go long, whatever's left is good enough for emergency and stuff like that. And that comes with time. That comes with rising of price, which also rise the individual confidence that, oh, wow, the system is working like I intended to be, like I was told it would be, but now it's proof in the pudding. So that's why I've seen that behavior do the same thing. Before I got into Hex, that thing was, Maddie, you remember? The average staking was a year, 1.2, 1.3. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then once I got an education, it took us 9 months. But as we educated and the price was rising, we quickly went to 3 years, then 4 years, and then 4.5 years for a while. And then at the peak of the market, we start cracking that 6, 7 years.
I think you need to do some more streaming because I don't think we're getting across to people. I mean, listen, it's okay if they don't. But you know, this whole outreach from the beginning, some people, of course, qualify it that for some reason we're trying to dump on people's heads, but we're not doing that. Trying to educate about the system and how you get the most hex is being in there longer, and that means having a ladder. It's probably the most economical way to get the most hex as well, and the cost adjust. But what we're seeing though are people are not going out very long at all. So
what about the discounts?
The average is something around 2 years or so.
Crispy, in your opinion, do you think the discounts are like, how do those measure kind of as a ratio? Is it like 1% of the T shares are being traded around in like DESI and in Hedron or whatever, like the HSI thing is? Or is it like a third of the T share volume is being captured by that? Like what order of magnitude is it, would you say?
Yeah, I can actually go look and tell you exactly how many T-shirts are in the HSIs. I don't have it offhand, but it's somewhere around the 8 to 10% range that I've seen that when they're being made, about 10% of them end up being made that way. If I go to
sounds about right.
This is pretty anecdotal. I'm sorry, they don't have the data right here. But if we go look here at the HSIs, this is just for 39, just to give you an idea. Fairly representative, you know, that you know, a lot of the T shares are HSIs, but this is what there's out of 5,000 stakes, 20% of them are HSIs.
Those HSIs are like almost all 5555 too, because there was a bonus paid in ICOSA if you did 5555. So there was almost no reason to do one for less unless it was just for personal use.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing that I see, which is cool, and this is important for anybody watching, that anybody that want to be a teacher, that anybody that on board. And by the way, you know, shout out to you. Keep up the good work. That's what I always love to do. But we need to be reminded that good teachers are patient. Let me say it again. Good teachers are patient, right? What I always say, right? It's like repetition is the mother of all skills. Remember.
I'm laughing because I made an index of all my I do this T-share report thing, right? They've been doing for a while. So I got 74 streams that I had lined up. So talk about repetition. I don't know if 74 is enough. Maybe it's 158. I don't know. But.
Yeah, so repetition is the mother of all skill. I remember when I first started with Hex, for literally the first 2-3 months, even more, there was actually a lot of pushback. You don't know what you're talking about, and then progressively it took time because you have to maybe train the community and get people to understand, especially when new people are also coming in. You can't assume that they know, so you have to go through that. That's number one. Number two, to point out what Fast Abdul has been saying and what we've been saying too, compared to the first time around when Hex went to 50 cents, whatever, you guys got to remember too, there's more than one game in town, because before we only had one main coin, Richard Hart coin, so to speak. Now we have 4. What does that matter? Because somebody can say, well, Kareem, but yield farming already existed back then too. Yeah, but we didn't trust it, rightfully so, because a lot of them, the contract was poor, a lot of them got hacked, all this kind of stuff. Now we have something, on Pulse Hex, where it's like, wow, it's the same grade of trust to some degree, a little less than Hex, but still it's in that family. So in other words, there's another game potentially that people can play with their money in that short term. This is the reason why some of that money that would have otherwise go into staking Hex is not going into those yield funds. And that is totally okay. It's a different game in time. I'm telling you that as the repetition continues, the education continues, and the price rises as the confirmation bias. I'm going to quote Swamney on this one. He said it best. You can do thousands of videos. People act like they don't care. The moment the green candle come, oh my God, you're a genius. But like, we've been saying this for years, but you need that repetition, because the green candle will come. Mark my word. And when it comes, you're going to remind people, hey, we've been saying this for a while. And then they're going to go watch the videos.
I think what you're seeing too is now things are always going to shift around. I agree with that. I think, this is my opinion, Kareem. The real show is Hex, but I know that there are opportunities for people to win other ways, and they do. But kind of to back a little bit of this up, right? Yes, am I farming? Yes, I'm farming. Why am I farming? Well, because I sacrificed. Well, why did I sacrifice? Because I wanted to have a home for Hex and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't do it. I did a good amount, but I didn't swap everything into Hex. And sometimes I wonder if that might have been my best move, but it's water under the bridge now. So if I look here, you can see Pulse Hex Pulse. I'm making a little bit less than if I'm validating. I'm validating too, right? So I'm making less than what I would do with validating. I look at Hex Pulse on the farm. I'm making just maybe a little bit more. But for how long, I don't know, or whether that'll go up or down, Hex Pulse, than if I just single-sided staked Hex. And then I don't have to worry about my my impermanent loss worries that I think are kind of overstated, But anyways, but you can see the percentages here on the screen, what's been happening with the farming, right?
Exactly. And this is where the math is beautiful, because the math is so good and direct that it can literally affect the human behavior. Perfect, like you were saying. People were doing the validating thing, then all of a sudden, the yield farming start yielding more than the validating. So people move to that. And then mark my word, at some point when the Hex price goes back to where I know it will, especially around that 8 to 10 cents mark, all of a sudden, even though the share rate went up, even though your monthly yield is a little bit less than what it was before, when the price of Hex is still pushing higher, all of a sudden, staking Hex would become even more incredibly valuable than even providing the liquidity in a short period of time. Very important, because long term will always win, but short term right now is kind of neck and neck or a little bit less. So people be like, you know what?
Well, my
mindset is 30 days, and I'm not thinking long term. My trade off is I love Hex, but I'm thinking 30 days, so I'm going to yield farm for 30 days over here and get more money than staking Hex for 30 days over there. But then when the Hex price goes to a certain price, all of a sudden that math contradicts itself. And
but you're pushing buttons to do all that stuff. And here's the thing, right? Hex wasn't built for button pushers, right? It wasn't built.
Absolutely. This is why we go long. I'm talking about for the short period.
It was built for the people to build the staking ladder. So that's why I continuously lose the battle if somebody wants to talk about swapping, right? Because if they're gonna swap ratios and everything, maybe they're gonna be the best at it. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, what can I tell you? But I mean, if you're locking up, you at least can guarantee you'll get a certain amount of Hex coming back in.
Yes. So what I'm trying to say in conclusion is that those short-term customers, so to speak, that Hex used to get on the short term, who are now temporarily, they're doing, I call they're doing Airbnb right now on the playing on the farming. The moment Hex get to that price again, they're all gonna come back home. So this is why I'm saying the long-term people are already here. The short-term people are the one that say, "Oh, where are they compared to before?" They're here. They're in the ecosystem.
Well,
you've
seen a crowd move like that, right? Not everybody gets to the door first, and that's where that friction, right, is where they lose value and it gets transferred to somebody else, which is unfortunate. But that's what a lot of this moving around and stuff causes, right? Is that not everybody does that. But anyways, we did just see a 5x right on PX, and it pulled back. Where do you think that went? Well, it didn't all leave the chain. It pulled back because people rotated. Right now,
And we see it. Hex Alert shows it. The big swaps,
yeah.
they all go to PulseX, Inc., or Pulse. Basically, it stays in the ecosystem.
Inc. is like beautiful for a Hex to Inc. trade. Do I trade? No, but I'm looking at it like, well, if I did, that's what I would do, right? I'd move from Hex into Inc. And then Inc's going to come back up. And when Inc. gets high, then you're going to see everybody jump into Hex. Well, not
and it reminds me the previous stream we did when I was talking about Inc. and I felt bad for the gentleman that was saying, "Oh, Inc's gonna go to 100," and I explained what needs to happen because again, some of that big money that owns a lot of Inc. You saw when the price get to a certain point, they start to rotate that. You know, some of them went to buy Hex and loaded up the price. Some of them went to buy other coins, or some of them went to add liquidity for their coin. So in other words, it's like you said, it's still in the ecosystem. It's a game of incentives. And it's a game of trade-off, like we've been saying fast to do. So people don't think, oh, this is better than that's better. No, it's like if you're one of those very specific short-term thinking person, which is okay, anywhere from 30 days, 45 days, you have to play the gymnastic because that's the game you play. You're playing 30-day game. If you're playing yearly game at current price, Hex already beats everybody. But if you're playing 30 days to 45 days, which is totally fine. Again, it's trade-off. It is your choice. You have to do the math regularly every 30 days because 30 days you make more money here, but the next 30 days as prices move, you might actually make more money over there. The point is you're doing your quote unquote 30-day lockup because that's what you're comfortable with, and that's perfectly fine. As long as I look at it like as long as you're utilizing the system, that's great. I'm just confident that the math also dictates that as the price rises, you're naturally going to become a long-term thinker. Because everybody who made it also understand the more money the big wallets make, the less money they need, so to speak, so they can think longer time horizon. Like, you know, people like Warren Buffett, they do a trade for decades. They don't even look at yearlies anymore, right? Now, does everybody's in that position? No, you build it up. But when you get to a point where you're good, capital preservation is a real thing, and making sure you make money in your sleep without too many swapping, because the more swap you do, even if it's like 0.5% or 1% slippage, 1% slippage on $100, it's not the same as 1% slippage on $500,000 swap. You know what I mean? And that's what some people still forget. So some people will make even more money by just standing still than moving around like this because you just give money to the market.
It's funny you guys mentioned this because I got into the yield farming after ChrispyMan and Brisology, you know, they were doing it in the beginning. I got into it a little bit later, and I strongly advocated for it for my own bags. But now I've come back to the light.
You come back to the house,
and
so you're one of those Airbnb customers.
Now I see that earning that yield in Inc. Basically, it's liquid, so it's not going to be around very long. If people are compounding it back into the system, the yield's going to keep dropping. It's not performing as well as Hex, especially like Deci being at like an extreme discount. I see why Hex still has a long-term future despite the yield farming narrative. So I moved back into basically looking at Deci as a major yield farm instead of just looking at the and I moved basically from the Inc. PulseX farm to that, and to just holding PulseX liquid because I think there was one day where there was a 4% difference or something in the price between PulseX and Inc., and they had been following each other almost perfectly. And so that was telling me that you
did a little ratio trade. Yeah.
I don't think either Briz or I ever told you get out of Hex and end your stakes and go.
No, you didn't. No, but you guys were doing yield farming, and I had time locked all my money, so I didn't have funds to like yield farm with, and I had to like build that up. So,
and Matty, the funniest thing in all this, right, is I want everybody to understand it's done on purpose. This is literally what we call this is the beauty of math. Once again, the study of incentive, because incentive will move people, and that's why we talk about trade-off. Because there's going to be times where it's the opposite, where it's like, oh, you're better off doing, that versus the other one. It's just understanding, having your finger on the pulse and understanding that Hex has been designed purposely to always have that meat on the bone. Because the moment that is gone, trust me, even long-term believers to some degree, they're going to be like, well, the risk now outweigh the reward. So I'm okay going over there. That's why Hex still have that really juicy high APY, because people will be like, oh, why is the yield so high? It used to be lower than that because it's not systemic. No, it's here to provide exactly what we're talking about. Because if all of a sudden global yield on the long term was no longer close to that 37%, then it will trickle down to the short-term yield, and all of a sudden money won't be coming in to lock in Hex. The risk won't outweigh the reward. So now all of a sudden people don't want to do it. Versus, oh, if I'm compounding 40% plus at a compounding rate year over year, I'm literally selling cool. I'm okay with 60% dip. I will tell you that again and again and again, or even 80%. Because if I'm doing on the long run, 2-3 years goes by, it compensates already for that 80% dip anyways, extra coin. And it's part of the mechanics. In the same way, Richard, shout out to him again, he had that really GOAT quote that I love. People are saying, well, mathematically, you pay too much yield, blah, 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 blah. Price will never go up. I said, no. That's not how this works. If the inflow of money coming in is greater than the yield being paid, price go up, period. That's just math. Because if you're on board at 1,000%, I'm talking about money coming in, compounding, you could pay 100% APY, the price will go up. It's always about a ratio. The same way you can pay 5% yield, but if the money coming in at 2%, the price goes down. So you have nothing to do with the yield. It's about just the flow.
Everybody in Hex could just like get a job that pays them twice as much, and then you wouldn't even need any new buyers in order to like allow the system to keep doing what it does.
Exactly.
So, yeah, like it's
it will literally like feed itself. Yep.
What if I told you guys you could have it all? You could have 15-year Hex stakes and be yield farming with little or no impermanent loss.
Tell me more.
It's a thing. Well, there's the Maximus Dow protocol. You might have heard of those chaps, Gold Key and Tonto. They made tokenized Hex stakes, and you can pair those tokens together on the at their 2FUX protocol. And it varies, but basically you have 5 or 6 tokens that represent staked Hex paired together. And you can make, right now it's only paying about 8%, but it's going up to 16 soon. And I've seen it over 50%. And there's, almost no impermanent loss because everything in the liquidity pair is Hex.
Exactly.
So I think there's a big win.
How do you spell the website?
That's 2phux.io.
And it's the number 2.
Number 2.
Got it.
I got 2 questions for you, if you don't mind. Because this is good in a sense, like you said, the person is not taking any new risk because the original risk is what the person already agrees to the moment they stake Hex. So I've did, because again, I'm not that familiar, but I've done an audit because now I'm thinking, number one, smart contract risk. I've done an audit on that particular pair and protocol and stuff.
Yeah, there's audits on the 2FUX protocol in particular. And then actually millions of dollars in audits and bug bounties on the parent protocols on Ethereum because it's fork code. So you have forks of Convex, forks of Aura Finance. There's literally millions of dollars have gone into verifying those products.
And then second question, that's more geared to me particularly. Let's say you're somebody that obviously you talk about stake Hex, right? I have plenty of those because I hate dormant capital. I don't have any liquid Hex. So, but the thing is, it's already locked on the main smart contract. Like, how would I go? I can't move those because does that make sense? Do I have to get a new wallet?
You don't have to get a new wallet. So if we're talking about Maximus Dow tokens, you would just have to buy those tokens. You can't move your staked Hex. Your staked Hex is your staked Hex.
So I can't go play liquidity farming with the stake Hex. I have to buy the new stuff.
You have to buy the new tokens if you already have staked Hex. So this would be you buying more Hex, which I think is something we recommend.
Yeah. And we want to congratulate the holders of the Maximus Dow token base, which is a 1-year recurring Hex stake because it just renewed. I guess it's going into its 3rd year, and it worked flawlessly. So that's a really good sign for those of us who are holding the 10-year version.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes there's a discount there. Like you can look at, like what's the price? Because they have the base, which is 1 year, Trio 3 years, Lucky 7 years, Deci 10 years, or the Maxi token is 15 years, like a 5555 stake. And you can arbitrage that to the price of Hex, which is another interesting game to play.
Yeah, kind of like a coupon.
Yeah,
makes sense. I remember they getting involved with the Hedron people too. Again, I don't know the details. Don't quote me on this, but I remember when it kind of came around, they were doing something with them too. So
auctions for Hex stakes, and you can still sometimes even buy those now. They're represented by an NFT called an HSI. Be careful because there's lots of fake ones out there. But people are selling them on OpenSea and other places, and you could buy a discounted Hex stake that could be moved to a different wallet, which is one of the cool things about that technology.
Nice. Yeah, shout out to Alex from Entrance.
So Deci is paying a 33% APY, and it's at about a 65% discount to like the net asset value of how much Hex has been accrued. And so right now you can trade about 1-for-1 Hex for Deci, even though the amount of Hex that has been earned per Deci is closer to 1.7.
Discount on T-shares right there.
This is
that's crazy.
In my opinion, it's
okay. What Maddie just said for people
is.
Watching, what Maddie just said is like if you buy this Deci with a 30% discount, you literally almost get the same rate as me with a 70% plus, even though your share rate is not the same because you're getting that discount. You're getting the 30% of the 30. That's really, really powerful. Again, for people who are like, oh man, I missed those old T-shirts. That's a way of playing catch up because you're getting that extra yield that some of us are getting because we're here earlier, so to speak, and we committed earlier, but that's a way to catch up while the discount lasts. Very important. It's like yield from, I'm getting this many APY. Remember, we can say that today, a couple of days from now, my people buy it, and all of a sudden the discount closed. So just
the Deci token, it's actually, is it right, Maddie? Is it 2 years in to a 10-year stake?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're buying a 10-year stake that's already 2 years in for the same or less than the price of Hex, depending on the day. So I think, if you are a true believer, then the math on that is pretty good. Crispy would know more about the math than me, but I'm pretty sure getting a 10-year stake 2 years in is a pretty steep discount if the price is the same.
Well, I think what Kareem brought up is the case, right? Where if the market moves in that direction, it becomes expensive. But Maddie's been talking about it for quite a while, and we've done some deep analysis on the Deci, and yes, looking at it alone in isolation, it will pay you more than if you stake to the same end date with the same economic value. Right now, you'll get more for that. I will tell you that at least, obviously I've done these things, right? A bunch of these different things. So I can't really be like, super hypocritical and say, don't do that. That's wrong. But I think that comes after you have a natively held, this is my opinion, only a natively held staking ladder that you control. Yes. That's already set up for your needs. And then
moderation,
the rest,
do it all.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's an argument to not doing that, but I understand the viewpoint, right? We can go round and round about this because you can't try new things unless you try new things, and you can't, but it doesn't mean it's going to work out for you either. And maybe it will, maybe it will just fine. But I always keep coming back to the native stuff, and that's one of the reasons with the communists, with the COM token. It was designed specifically to reinforce the native approach, native staking.
Same thing with the Hedron.
But yeah. I mean,
we talk about security first before even you go play with funny. What is the first thing I ask Fast to do? Right? Has an audit been done? I don't care respectfully about the potential, the money, the this, the that. Remember, rule number 1: assess the risk. Oh, Kareem, we can make last time with our money and where's the risk? Okay, what if the money's gone? Now what? Right? 1,000%
the HSIs themselves, I think, are very safe.
Alex did an audit. I remember when he came around.
But we, here's the thing though: is I have HSIs. Are they worth the value? Yes. Can I do anything with them? No, I can't do anything with them. I mean, I can give them away, that might be an option. I can get 10 cents on the dollar less than that if I want to sell them back to the ICOSA contract. I could try to sell them to you guys, but how many people really want to buy them, right? There's no market. Now,
there could be a market, though, like any NFT platform on the chain.
Build and they will come. Yeah, exactly.
But it ain't there yet.
It's better to have it.
My point is a lot of people got that idea
There's
that they were going to buy them short term and turn them, right? Which again is not it doesn't reinforce the delayed gratification kind of mindset in the long term. And what happened? I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen, but there's no market, not yet.
So Deci has already in half of a cycle in the past 2 years, it's traded at a steep discount, then traded at a premium, then traded at a discount again. And so, so the thing to keep in mind is that you can't always know that you'll do better than somebody who's staked, because you don't know if there's going to be enough liquidity there, and if you're going to push the price against yourself, and if there's going to be a premium or a discount at any time.
You'll do better if you're willing to wait to the end of the stake.
Exactly. That's just what I was about to say. That's the catch. Because if you play the trading in and out, you don't get the real bonus money. The bonus comes when you hold it, then the 10-year end, and then the distribution happen. Because those who are playing the in and out, I mean, granted, those who bought it on a discount, sold it on a premium, yes, they made a buck. But the real value, like he's saying, is holding it until completion. Because if not, you're doing that in and out, you're definitely not making more money than the person that just have his native stake and not just riding it out all the way to the end.
Unless you need both at 30% to support that whole time, then I think you are making more than them most of the time.
Yeah. So there's like 3 different ways to play the Deci game. And a fourth way is to time lock it in timepays.me, to where, you're not earning yield and you're saving yourself from yourself to not be able to sell, even if the price of Hex goes to multi-dollars. So there's all kinds of different ways that people can play this. And I think that's a good thing. I also am kind of glad that the tradable Hex stakes market is not so developed and not so popular, because I think it kind of takes away from the people who are doing it natively. And so it's
because the wisdom is we want to avoid abuse, because the problem is, to Crispy's word earlier too, is that if we're not careful, now we're reintroducing people doing a lot of trading. And the problem, just like a drug, right? Or just like even alcohol, like there's people that know how to use moderation, and there's people that have no self-control. And you can't give them toys like that, because then they're going to blow themselves. The same people using leverage a little bit to some degree when we talk about what we're talking about. And Hex
is comparable to leverage. Leverage is way different.
Yeah, it's understanding the diversity, because now we're talking complex stuff. We're talking, it's almost like option. We're talking about a discount, premium. Like average person, they don't know that stuff. So it's for somebody that's very sophisticated or that want the stuff. Okay, cool. It's like you're buying the main thing, then you buy the option.
Not that complicated, Green. They're tokens. You can just go buy them.
No, I get it, but I'm talking about what the token does. A perfect example, when Maddie said the Deci, it was at a severe discount, then a premium, then a discount. Why is that? Why I translate to as an educator is like people had no clue what that was. So he crashed, discount like crazy. Then some people heard about how good it is and what we just talked about. Then they went to buy it. Then he got into a premium. Then they sold it, but then they didn't come back. Maybe also market, because remember, when we're in the bear market, nobody cares about a lot of coins. I'm talking about when we go back full on bull. I'm talking about Hex is above 10 cents. I'm talking about all of a sudden we're the talk of all town again and again. And we're now legit, no SEC issues, nothing. All of a sudden, all those things are going to start gravitating again.
I could see the HSI is selling at a premium at some point, right?
Exactly.
With those kind of action for sure.
Because the underlying value of Hex is also going up. That's why the premium makes sense.
And, in other markets, in Ethereum and Bitcoin, we've seen when there was a discount that was predictive of what would happen next. Exactly. And so it was a forward-looking thing where when Ethereum was trading half off, even though it's a paper version, and Bitcoin, also both Grayscale, shares that traded 50% off, and then those discounts narrowed back to par, and then the bull market takes off, And so, if anybody out there is like, believing the superstition that I just said, then maybe you want to stop there to be such a discount. If you're a whale out there, you want to stop letting people, get all these cheap T-shares with Maximus Dow tokens and with HSIs, and then maybe the market magically goes up, or maybe it's unrelated, right? So there might have been more other factors at play with the Ethereum trusts. What do you guys think?
I think anybody that value Hex and understand it long term should consider it, because for somebody that, let's say, that wasn't fortunate enough to be here early enough to get the old T-shirt for the discount stuff, that's a great tool for you to play catch up. Because in other words, doing it the regular way, maybe you would have get 100 T-shirts, just an example. But now doing it that way, you're getting the purchasing power of maybe 150 T-shirts. So anybody should consider that, because the problem is, like Maddie perfectly says, when the discount starts to close, which just means in simple English, people are buying, then the takeoff happened. A lot of the time, people are reactionary. It's already too late. You should have already witnessed that. Remember when we used to come up here and talking about, oh, guys, the discount is closing. We called it month in advance because we knew the bull run was coming, because we know it starts in the mechanics, in the plumbing first. Because a lot of people that don't want to spook the market, they will go to the secondary market. They will go empty the freebies first at a discount, and then they'll go buy on market. So if people don't realize that, what ends up happening is this: they ignore it now, then Hex continue to pump. We passed 3 cents, we passed 5 cents, we passed 8 cents, 10 cents. Now all of a sudden, this is what happened. The mechanics is, like I said earlier, the people who are rotating and selling, they stopped doing that a lot. They stopped trading a lot. So now even less Hex is liquid on the bids. Price is staying up and trending upwards. Now all of a sudden, you realize you can't afford a T-shirt. It's too expensive. So you're looking at anywhere else you can get a discount. And this is when all of a sudden you're going to think about what we just talked about. And the sad reality is the whale is also thinking about that, because you think you were the only one buying. And by the time you get there, it's at a premium.
Think about this, though, Kareem. Yeah. Like when you look at these tokens, like the Maximus Dow tokens, and there's another new protocol coming out, or it's out actually, called Actuator, that does a similar thing where you're tokenizing Hex stakes. Like, they're still locked Hex. Like, they are, like, Maxi tokens represent 15-year staked Hex. So it still happened, right? Like, it's still locked in the protocol. It doesn't take anything away. It only adds to the ecosystem, in my opinion. Now, somebody, of course, could sell those Maxi tokens, individually. But, like,
I disagree.
Still a 15-year Hex stake.
I understand.
What do you think? You do agree?
Well, agree? No, I disagree. Well, the reason why is, listen, it's I know that this argument won't fly for 100% of the people, right? But there's something about focusing all your economic energy into one place, and how that can really make 1 + 1 = 3, 2 + 2 = 7. But it is crypto. It's DeFi. People can do what they want to do.
I've actually changed my opinion on this. I've come full circle, like a dog chasing his tail, like
you
around
already
and
went
around
for
and
a
around.
full circle from
I know,
staking.
right? Yeah.
What other circle?
Hold on. I'm gonna tell you the new angle, okay? Okay. Yeah, so like, this argument that like locking up the Hex, but still having volume on T-shares, like being able to trade a T-share that is, it doesn't matter that the Hex was locked up, like, people are still getting in and out of the game, whereas otherwise they wouldn't. But like the new observation that I have is that when you lock people in and they get mad gains, you have to pay for it later. And so there actually might be some benefit to like having, basically the people are able to get out. It seems like they're getting, free yields, whereas other people had to wait longer. But always remember that, as what's conceivable as far as I can see, is that the majority of the yield that's paid in Hex is like it paid by price appreciation against the dollar versus by like being able to triple your Hex over 15 years. And so, maybe if you look at it and like you tripled your Hex, well, yeah, maybe you can still argue that the majority of the yield is coming from Hex, but the idea here is that like, you know, Hex is designed to go up and down against the dollar 100x every cycle, perhaps, versus like, you know, so basically what I'm saying is like people being locked in to their Hex stakes, like that gives a type of yield that you can't get by being able to trade T-shares. And so I think the system ends up being strangely balanced compared to how I looked at it before.
Yeah, and a couple of things that I want to say, but this is great, is I'm seeing the in between the two, and this is why I can see where the logic comes in, why I would say they're both needed, right? So first thing I want to clarify is that, to my understanding, even those things, the longer pays better functions still apply. Example, yes, somebody can, he's got free yield, but let's say he did an in and out for 100 days. He bought it, then he exited, whatever, 100 days. So but he only gets the yield for the 100 days versus the person that did the whole 15 years. He's going to get the yield for the whole 15 years. So in other words, the longer pays better still applies based on time being spent. And that's really where the key has always been. The same way I understand Crispy point of view, I can even articulate it, I think, in a sense where ideologically speaking, I always prefer the native, pure, longer pays better because it teaches you that discipline. Again, ideology speaking, because you don't want to have no escape, no this, no this, like less things to worry about, less smart contract risk, period. It's just, it does this thing, you set it, you forget it, you come back when the time is due. There's something that it does to your soul, you delay gratification, all the things even Maddie talked about in Therapy Live, all those things apply, what I call intangibles. So beyond the money, it has that ideology. Now, that said, the other stuff also is, I believe, needed because as we saw, as the price rise up, because I remember perfectly, especially after 25 cents to 50 cents, some people, they just needed a little bit of money for, you know, what we call in hedge on like emergency funds or a little, like they didn't want to empty the stack. That's what people don't understand. They didn't want to, I want to trade my bag. No, they're just like, wow, I'm worth way more now. It would be nice if I can use a little bit to do X, Y, and Z.
Or if a guy had an emergency, he needs some money right away, that'd be handy too.
Or that too, exactly. So in other words, I can see the usefulness of those tools in those situations. The same way I was saying back then when Hedron came around that, and when we were trying to do that sticker app, the tradable share idea was just for like, hey, you have either an emergency, you know, of some sort, or there's just you're willing to have again that trade-off of making a little bit less yield, but just to be able to have that flexibility for that small amount. So it'll be good to have. But I never wanted it to be the main event because we don't want to teach people to turn back into be trader to the point where Crispy's talking about and what Maddie has always preached about, which is true. So this is where it's like, how do we find the right nuance and how do we make sure people don't confuse the main thing? Because then I don't want you to take the side piece and think the side piece is the main thing, because then there's a no also. So it's finding the sweet
balance. Your main thing might not be everybody else's main thing, though, Kareem. My main thing is farming. So, you know, to me, like a Maximus Dow pool, that's the main thing. I have Hex paired against Hex paired against Hex. I could be in that pool for 15 years as long as it exists and so on and so forth. And, you know, and make yield that way. And so people
and that's true and that's good, but in that case you wouldn't have to mess with staked Hex. That's, you're making my point. You would just be a farmer and just do your farming, buy the token to
sure. And why can't that be my main thing? What's wrong with that?
No, I think that's great. What I'm saying is, what I'm talking about is those specific tradable Hex stakes. Make sense? We're not talking about farming as a
That's
whole.
what he's
farming
saying too.
We're talking about the same thing,
farm.
like farming with those tokens. Sorry, Maddie. Go ahead.
Yeah, but if the person is getting those tokens in hope to get a yield out of it, they are better off just getting the native yield and just get the yield. If they wanted to farm, then they can just get the farm coin. That's all I'm saying. You get what I'm saying? I'm not saying
but you're wrong is the problem, right? Because you're farming with tokens that represent a Hex stake that will be redeemable for the yield you're talking about. You get that too. You get to get your.
Or maybe it's because I haven't seen it yet. Maybe it's something that I'm not understanding. But I get what you're saying. But to my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, is that the moment you take them out to go play the farming game, you're putting in another contract. So at that point, they stop earning that daily yield. Am I correct?
No,
or am I incorrect?
No, they have, you know, the like for instance in the Maxi case, right?
Yeah,
it's a token that represents a stake, and so it is going to have a value at the end, right? It will have a value at the end that's equal to whatever its portion of that stake is. The thing is it's the in between. What happens to that maxi? Do you even hold it at the end? I mean, there's all these things.
That's what I'm saying. The in between. That's why I use the example when I was talking to Maddie, saying, "Hey, somebody can play the free yield, but maybe you did free yield for 100 days or 200 days versus the guy that literally did the whole 15 years.
I think
15 years worth of yield.
I think the other part of this, and listen, I'm not trying to cast stones at Fast and what's going on there. Listen, I've done some stuff now, right? So I can't claim that I'm a virgin, that I'm some virginal hex guy. Right? So I mean, because I've done a lot of these different things. But here's the thing: is I think this is true. I think if I set up 1,000 new people with hex stakes and they followed the plan and they had their ladder, that more of them are going to make it to the end than if I set 1,000 people up trying to figure out how to keep their farms going and watching those and monitoring them and doing the work behind that. And
when they have the choice too, like they have more options
have a choice,
to pull out. So, and some people are going to make the
doesn't work
choice.
Very well. I got 6 kids. I'm telling you.
Think of Maxi like this. You know, like hex is a bus. If you're driving that bus, you know, if you crash it, you're going to hurt a lot of people. Maxi is like, and Maximus Dow tokens in general, they're like a motorcycle. You crash it, you're just going to hurt yourself probably.
No,
but you're dead. The bus might survive.
That's true. That's true. But like, I'd prefer to have people for the ecosystem in general. I'd prefer to have them selling Maximus Dow tokens if for whatever reason they want, than selling hex tokens. If people could only stake their hex and then only sell their Maximus Dow tokens, I think that would be an overall win.
That's fair.
To make it more clear for the audience, maybe, and for myself. So Fast Abdul, you're saying that there is a protocol that people are using on Pulse Chain where people can hold in a single liquidity pool 5 or 6 different versions of hex. And some of these versions of hex are like part of the Maximus Dow protocol, where it represents a T-share on like different time frames. And you're saying that people can hold those tokens that are accruing yield that's like redeemable on these different time frames. Like the 1 year hex stake just came out this week. And so people could redeem it for hex or leave it in there. But then not only are people earning the yield that they would if they're holding those tokens themselves, but then if they put it into this like 5-way yield farm thing, this 5-way liquidity pool, then people can earn what other token on top of that?
So in the case, the pools are on the Fux exchange, which is a fork of Balancer V2. So if you put your yield token on there, then you just earn PHUX tokens as the bonus token on top of what your hex or maxi tokens are worth. But if you put it via the 2FOX protocol, that's number 2 phux.io, then you get the 2 PHUX token and the PHUX token, and it increases your yield of both. So you're basically doubling what you get by yourself.
Those are both kind of like ink, where it's just like somebody's deciding that that's valuable
with utility, which is a core difference in this case. It's quite a bit more complicated than PulseX. PulseX is a simpler choice, but with this, you are with these pairs. Like there's two different main ones, and there's a third one. But the main one is 6 tokens that all represent hex that are paired with each other. So in permanent loss, which is to me the biggest thing for yield farming right now, is you need to look at your impermanent loss. No matter what happens, you're going to end up with more hex. You're not going to have less hex. You just might have more of one.
But some yield more hex at a faster pace, though. So there's still a little bit of impermanent. But I get what you're saying. It's the same coin, but if you
could compound your interest into more hex if you wanted. Like you're getting these 2FOX and FUX tokens, and if you wanted to, there's other things you can do with them, but that's not the point today. You could sell those and buy more hex and put it back into that position, and then get more next time, and then do it again, then get more next time. And like if you were to turn a compounding calculator onto that using that technique, you would end up with a lot more hex than just staking Hex.
Especially if they had a discount, like we established earlier. If they had a discount and you're playing the same mindset game long term and you're buying something 30% discounted, guys, it's quick math. You might still not beat somebody like me or somebody that's day one, but you'll be damn close because again, the T-share are going to continue to be more expensive and the share rate is not going to wait for you. So as long as those discounts are there, I'm honest enough to tell you that this is a good point. My only question to Abdul was just more about, again, just to go into the technicality for 2 seconds. Is it, I'm going to give an analogy, you tell me if it's real or not. Is it the same as I'm getting a certificate of deposit for my stakes, aka the Maxi coin, right? Because it represents that. And then as I am going and play the yield farming game and paying with whatever, although I remove the coin from that situation, I'm still entitled to the yield, correct? Of that coin.
You're entitled to, with the Maximus Dow tokens, Crispy can probably explain it better. What does it work, Crispy, for when the Maximus Dow tokens end?
Yeah, at the end, you just redeem them for Hex. But
just
like, so I'm not losing the days in between.
I think what Fast mentioned, which is a really key point, right? This is why this isn't like beginner level. This isn't like day one crypto guy comes in or lady and you're like, hey, you should go do farming because you need to understand it. But, there's impermanent loss risk, right? So if Maximus Dow does great, which you would expect it's going to go up, and let's say you like some other token, it's not going to go up as fast, right? Well, then you're going to lose the Maximus Dow token. Right, which is your point about the yield. And Fast is saying, hey, listen, if you're earning on that, you can just keep buying more Hex, or better than that, you just buy more Maximus Dow. But that's every one of these is more button pushing, right? I mean, and maybe everybody hasn't sent money to the wrong place, and
that's why I want to understand it because I'm going to explain it once I understand it.
The mechanism, Kareem, is it's a tokenized pooled Hex stake that is like controlled by a smart contract only. Okay. So that's like that's what that's why the tokens can continue to accumulate this virtual yield that's redeemable at the end of the period and still be used in protocols like 2phux.io and timepays.me. Is that like, you don't have it, unlike the Hex contract, you don't burn your Hex and then have to wait before you can do something with it. But the key is, I think I hear you saying, the key is that it's only redeemable at the end, correct? So in other words, which is why the liquidity matters so much. Yeah.
So because I heard somebody say earlier that if I go in and out, let's say it's a 10-year stake, but I go in and out 200-300 days, I'm getting the yield of the 200-300 days. Then that's incorrect.
It depends if it's at a discount or a premium.
Let's forget
the underlying Hex that has been virtually accrued. But the market so something that this yield farming thing has created is it's created more liquidity for these tokens so that there's the ability for people to win who want to sell, who want to buy, they have less slippage, and then people who want to yield farm, then if they're compounding, they're getting a good deal too.
Gotcha. So irrespective of the premium and the discount, which actually shouldn't be implying this example here because it creates more confusion, technically speaking, it is literally we're taking the certificate of deposit and then we're doing yield farming with it. So whoever owns that certificate at the end of the day when the redeemable function happens, year 10, that's the person that gets to collect all the yield, correct?
That's right.
That's a big difference. That's actually good. Because now when I hear that, I'm thinking, I'm not losing my daily yield because I hate dormant capital. If I'm playing with this thing, I don't want to be like, even if I yield farm for a week, I don't want to lose a week worth of Hex because I know how much I generate per day. And in a single day, sometime to me, it's like I lost that, I'd be upset. So it's like, because now you're telling me I can go, if I use this and I do whatever, as long as I keep the coin, let's say I yield farm for 10 years. And then the last day before the 10 years, I remove the yield farm. I got the coin and I can go collect my 10-year yield. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
If you didn't.
That's actually good. That's actually good. There's no impermanent loss in Hex term because I'm getting what I was promised in Hex term.
There's also, I see Jamie in the chat there mentions that you also get a Hedron bonus on the Maxi tokens as well. So they're accumulating Hedron just like it was a hex stake.
Yeah. I don't see a negative on that. That's actually
good. In the case that Kareem described, where you're yield farming DESI in a 5-way pool, you might expect that you have the impermanent loss over the 10 years gives you like more liquid hex and less DESI at the end. And so you wouldn't be able to redeem like the same basically amount of DESI.
Okay.
But if you're compounding and if you're doing other stuff, then that could possibly make up for it in a really interesting way.
Gotcha.
And again, like, I'll say a third time that like that the base, the 1 year perpetual contract just redeemed this week. And, so that was a situation where whatever amount of hex, right? Cause like if you stake hex for a year, it's giving you maybe like 8% yield in hex. So, maybe if those base tokens were trading for 1.07 hex or 1.09, then somebody was able to arbitrage that on the last day where they could redeem then with hex instead of redeeming into a less liquid, DEX. And so, these are all like,
it's important. So people watching, I want to recap this, what Maddie just said, because it's important, but I'm going to try to use simple terms because I got it now. So the only impermanent loss in a sense, when you start playing with those hex things is imagine like there's two coins, kind of like you have, when I was talking to people about farming, hey, what's the best? I told everybody Ink and Pulse X, because again, when you look at the pattern, you look at the chart, those are the ones who are the most oversold and the most likely to pump. I look at it like this. It's like one coin can probably yield on the APR average somewhere around 30%, and then the other coin might do 10%. And what Maddie is saying is, although they both have hex, at some point you want more of the coin that's yielding 30% and less of the coin that's yielding 10. Because if it creates an imbalance, now all of a sudden your impermanent loss in hex term is the fact that you're getting more of coins who are only giving you 8%, and your coins that was yielding 30%, somebody's taking those away from you. So you got to watch out for that. That will be your earned permanent loss while in the hex yield system. But if we're talking about just pure hex to hex, there is no impermanent loss because they all represent hex. But again, they represent hex at a different yielding ratio. So that's why it's a little bit more advanced. So look at it like, it's not like a typical coin where, oh, this coin is more valuable than this coin. It's more like this coin yield 30%, this coin yield 10%. Your goal when you enter those pool is to either keep them equal, that will be perfect, because that way you just get the Fox coin, whatever the ink version, and then your ratio stays the same, and then you don't lose your yield at the end when you collect your hex. But if all of a sudden the pair is shifting and somebody's taking more of your maxis and dumping base, in other words, taking your 30% yield and giving you more 1 year yield of 8%, you will technically experience a loss in yield. Because
but they call it an impermanent loss for a reason, Kareem, and that's
because I get it. I was just explaining. No, you're right.
I'm just explaining.
We're live right now, so I want to
impermanent loss is only permanent if you pull the liquidity. So you could ride all the, like, let's say you were in there for the full 10 years with the DESI token, you could ride right through that claim period, and 2 years later, your loss would be gone, right? Like it's impermanent until you pull the liquidity, and then whatever your position is now permanent. And now you've either taken the loss or made the gain, which is certainly a bit in the eye of the beholder when the tokens are, all based on hex. But the permanence is only if you make a rash decision. So if you make
but
choices,
what I'm saying is,
don't pull it when it's a bad time, then you're not going to be in that position.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're gonna have to like anything related to yield farm. This is one of the risks. You gotta be a little bit of a trade in the sense where timing does matter, period. It's the same way where you yield farm to
you shouldn't
Bitcoin.
make rash decisions, right?
Oh, yeah,
you're
of
not
course,
a trader, you're a farmer. You gotta chill, almost like hex staking in a way, right? Like if you don't chill and you're adding or moving liquidity on a weekly basis, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot.
That's crazy. Yeah, you'll be paying so much in fees and literally, and when I say fee, I'm not just talking about transaction fee. I'm talking about when you add remove liquidity on the pool and you do swaps, those little 0.05%, oh, it's nothing. Yeah, but once you start moving thousands of dollars, it adds up really, really fast. It's something you want to avoid.
Oh, yeah.
So
if you do it
my only warning that I would say, and thank you for saying that, because that's very, very true. People should never be rushed, no matter what. The pitfall that they want to avoid in the long term, if somebody were to do something like that, is just understand that the logic is this. As the time goes on, and obviously the stakes are going to be more valuable, the hex price is going to go up. So those stakes are also going to be more valuable. But remember what we're just talking about. Rate of compounding is a real thing. Something that compounds at 10% and something that compounds at 30%. 5 years later, there's a shit more coins over here than over here. So as you get close to termination, watching that ratio between the two compounding is very, very important, because what ends up happening is over time, as the protocol gets successful, the coin gets successful, and the yield of being accrued, it's logical to imagine that people are going to veer more towards getting more maxis because they're more valuable, right? Price went up, yield has increased. Everybody can see those stakes live on the blockchain because they're real. So it's like, oh, there's a hot pot over here, and that hot pot's getting bigger, faster, and more valuable. So it's common sense. I mean, maybe not, but I'm explaining to you guys. It's common to think that when that starts happening, new buyer wants to own that coin more than the other coin because that coin is more valuable. Does that make sense, audience? I'm talking to you. It's very important. So right now, with all those discount game, yeah, go and get it, have your fun, whatever. But as we're getting close back to what hex belongs, and we know that, again, 10 cents and up, those little nuance that we're talking about is very important, because somebody can end up with literally half the stack that they should have. Keyword should. They're always going to get more because yield is yield. You will never lose on that. That's the one piece of mind I can give you. We're all talking hex. Price will go up. You will get yield. If you get 10% yield versus 30% yield, you still got more yield. But we all know how people think. They're going to be like, Kareem, man, I'm not mad about the 10%, but I could have had 30. That's how the brain works. People who always try to be like, well, but I lost 20%. So it's like, I have to mention it. But it's a lesser, weirder game than dealing with total different stranger coin that can go to zero. I want to make that very clear. And Fast Abdul is absolutely
I don't think it's nearly as bad as what you're saying, Kareem. I think if people just stake and chill their LP tokens, even though they're not locked, they have a choice. If they choose to just stay and farm through the ups and downs, like you could farm in a pool like that for 2 cycles, right? Or longer, or even for like 10 whole years. And you would see like massive impermanent loss on some days and massive gain on others. And but all that up and down, all that, let's say people are like, I want the Maxi token because it's ending in a year or it's ending in 3 months. So I'm going to buy that. That creates fees, and the fees in protocols like this that are farms that are going back to the users in the form of the yield tokens, right? So when there's a massive run up on the Maxi token or whatever token it is in that pair, all these things that represent hex stakes, that's going to generate a massive amount of fees that go to that pool, and that's getting paid back in yield. So you'll see a vast increase in yield when something like that happens, and there'll be a lot of trading. It'll be up and down on all the tokens because there's something's happening, something's on the calendar. But that if you're doing the right thing with your yield, which is a very important part of yield farming, if you're just you're taking your yield and taking it to the bar every day and just making it your fun money, well, that's not what it's about. But if you're compounding that yield or using it, if it's a utility token like Fox and 2Fox are in some other way to benefit yourself, then you could definitely still win. So, but I think as long as people use the same hex mentality for farming as they do for staking hex, of having a plan.
Farm and chill. You want me to use that?
Stake and chill. Yeah.
There you go.
So there's one last fun thing that we can put onto all this. And it's at some point, basically the incredible discount that you're getting on Deci, will not be outdone by a native 15-year hex stake. even though those are different time frames, I'm talking about the curve of the compound interest that a 15-year stake represents. There might be some like point to where basically we already predict that DESI will go through like cycles of premium and discount many times, like multiple times per cycle. But I think that's particularly interesting that probably now at like a 70% discount, it's like still a better deal. Like if you were to get DESI, serve your time, and then do another 5 years compared to doing 15 years native now. However, there will be a point where that's not true anymore because of the power of the last, the hockey stick part of compound interest and how that works and how it's not easily calculated by human meat brains. So, there you go.
Yeah, but Maddie, I think that's why they have the Maxi token to cover the 50.
So, but here's the thing about that, Cream. That was created a year before these other ones. And the other ones, all of them except Maxi, are perpetual, which means they renew if you don't redeem them. And so that's kind of that's kind of important. The website, Daniel, where you can look at the discount on DESI, I believe is lookintomaxi.com.
Just look on Dex Screener and look at the price of DESI versus the price of Hex. That's it, right? Is it the same or less? To me, that's a good deal. Not financial advice, but it should be more.
So if you if you take the so something I did is I took the contract address of DESI and I plugged it into hexscout.com.
Yeah.
And what that does is it shows you how much yield has been accrued so far. And that's going to give you an idea basically that, as I said, the amount of hex per DESI on Pulse Chain, it should be, instead of 1-to-1, it should be that you're having to pay about 1.6 or 1.7 hex per DESI. If you think that the net asset value should hold. And so that's
like a bond market.
That's the particular discount and premium that I'm talking about, not to say that DESI and Hex, after 2 years almost of accumulating yield, that they should be equal 1-to-1. I don't think that they should be equal 1-to-1. And we've certainly seen Maxi always be at a premium, and DESI, like I said, gone back and forth.
Yep. And the reason to that, guys, if you remember, if you're OG enough, I've told you guys a long time ago, one of those wells too, that Hex is perfectly designed to be like, the next bond market of the world, which is the biggest, market pool size in the world because of the whole dynamics behind it. And then just how wealth is being built, and literally those different time frames, they literally works like bonds. And the reason why we talk about, discounts and premium is because kind of like bear market versus bull market, right? Good economy versus bad economy, right? When we talk about yield curve inversion, it's important. The reason why you're getting that premium right now, most likely on the what you call the DESI, and then what's the name of the one that's 1 year, Maddie? What's it called?
Base.
And some of the other is because some people will be like, oh, well, I don't know where we're gonna go. I want to make that short term, get my money quick, boom. So market will go get those a little bit more. And then as the market stabilizes itself, as the price of Hex goes back to that glory, which it will, I'm 100% like I believe in my gut it's gonna happen. All of a sudden, people are going to start moving along the risk curve a little bit more. Now they're going to be comfortable buying the 3 year more, the 5 year more. And all of a sudden, the 1 year that used to be, premium because everybody wants that short term, it can go at a discount because the money is now moving to the 3 year and the 5 year because they're like, oh, wow, Hex is going back where it's going to go. It's up. It's da-da-da. It's going to do what I want to get that extra yield. Next thing you know. So premiums or discounts are basically function of markets. The same way you see yields in the bonds, right? Oh, nobody wants to buy the bond. The yield rate went up to 4 or 5, almost 6%, right? And then all of a sudden, once we go back to, economy might be bad, Federal Reserve on a lower rate, boom. Next thing you know, people run to the bonds, right? Yield goes out. It's the same thing, but think of it like Hex, has his own bond market. And then those coupons, those DESI, Maxis, and whatever, are kind of those different duration, kind of how you literally have a 1 year yield, 2 year yield, 5 year yield, 10-year yield. It's almost exactly the same. It moves like that. That's what bonding math is. And if the underlying asset is doing very well, aka in a bull market, people are going to move towards the longer riskier side of the curve. If the underlying asset is going to a bear market, people are going to move more in the shorter term. Just like in the economy, when the economy was bad or very bad, bear market, you want people on the 2-year yield, they want more money, they want that premium versus buying the long term because they feel like, oh, the economy is bad. So apply that same logic mechanic in those things. So that way, hopefully that will help you if you decide to dive into those. As long as you understand the underlying asset, where Hex is going, that's going to be able to allow you to make a less riskier bet, more an informed decision. Hopefully that makes sense. Because now that we know, and thanks for Abdul for explaining that the underlying is still primarily Hex, at least it's one type of impermanent loss that you don't have to worry about, because that's a big deal. When we're talking about 8-10% versus 30%, yes, it sucks. You might lose. But imagine that wasn't Hex and Hex do a 20x, and then you were not part of that 20x. You went into something else that only went up maybe 2x or 30%. You're going to be very pissed. You're not going to be worried about, oh, I lost 20% of my Hex. No, I lost like freaking, X's of time. So that's important.
There's been some speculation as to like what type of experiment might be happening with the Maddie token, to where, it's been said that nobody needs to buy it and it could go to $20 and stay there before PDI ever gets to $1. And, if somebody was looking on chain, like trying to figure out how something like that might be possible, they might have seen recently that there was some liquidity added between Deci and Maddie, which is something that you might expect as Hex goes up, as Deci continues to accrue yield, and as maybe the discount closes. You might see
it helps the pool,
something like that happen. And so this is a really good demonstration, I think, of like Hart's law, and a really wholesome thing where it's an example of something where, you don't like the best game theory is not necessarily to buy Maddie token now, because you could just buy Deci, or you could be doing, whatever that strategy is. And so it's a situation where it feels particularly wholesome.
And guys, it's the same thing that I told you about weeks back about ink, right? Which is how ink can have more value. And if done right, ink can go to $100. It's just those big players farming the ink. They just need to do, the thing that, Fabs Abdul was talking about, but like, the opposite of just going to the bar and then just wasting the yield. If they decide to compound it and then provide it for liquidity somewhere else, next thing you know, ink's not being sold, which they'll allow it to continue to rise.
I would argue that when you provide liquidity, it is creating something to be sold on both of the pairs. And so that's why we've seen in the past where I think it was
is the negative
was,
influence greater than the person just dumping the whole thing, right? Imagine somebody has $200,000 worth of ink that he generates every 45 days. Do you think it's worse for him to dump it all and affect the price that way, or to provide the yield? Because I get what you're saying.
When they dump it, they're getting a lower price. And this is another thing that became clear to me only once I studied the Maddie token liquidity, because when there was less liquidity, people got to sell for a higher price.
Yeah.
And normally that wouldn't make sense, right? Because normally you're thinking slippage. If people want to sell, having lower liquidity is worse. But it just so happened that under a lower liquidity environment, when there's higher volume than there was previously, then what happens is the buyers are pushing the price against themselves more than the sellers are pushing the price against themselves. And so it's been shown on chain like that was the case with Maddie token, where lowering the liquidity allowed people to exit at a higher price than they would have otherwise.
Oh, absolutely.
When we look at your question in particular, it's the interchangeability of two things that really creates the bonding of Hart's law to where they will move together as a ratio. And so I think we saw maybe like 6 months ago now or something. Remember the time whenever the OA like only bought PulseX?
Yeah.
And like I was scratching my head like why, before they had bought like equal amounts.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to look into, well, what's the relationship between the liquidity between RH tickers and how much each of these tokens is moving. And that's what made me start to realize that, Pulse would go up and down less than PulseX and Inc. because of the bonding and the interchangeability between each of those tokens.
Yes.
And so, that still doesn't tell me which direction the market is going. But if you,
it just lowers the volatility. Because here's the funny thing, right? When you do that, yes, you lower the volatility to the downside, but you can also potentially lower the volatility to the upside. So this is the reason why sometimes it depends on what is it that you're solving from. If you're solving for stability, you want to lower the vol. If you're solving for, hey, I wanted this thing to really, really, really pump, you do what you also say, which is what actually small coin, even the shit coin, that's what they do. They put the liquidity very, very low. That's what allowed them to do those 100x crazy stuff with barely like $10,000. And then the person looks like, oh my God, I got this much money. But no, the liquidity is not there. But it allows the ticker to move where they want it to do. And then what I've seen OA does many times is you can temporarily lower to allow the vol to increase so you can push the price where you need to be. And then when you get to where you want to be, wink, wink, 10 cents, example, right? Or somewhere around it, then you can add the liquidity back to now lower the volatility to create that stability. You still want volatility to happen, but now you're doing it in a tight range. And funny enough, people think, oh, you need a lot of volatility like that in order for the transaction fee to increase. No. You can have a spread, but now you see hundreds of thousands of dollars single transaction. The volume can still be high and the fees can still be good. It's just instead of going like this, it's doing like this. Frequency increase. So you get what you want in fees, so to speak, without creating stability, because then people are scared. They love it when it goes up. They don't like it when it starts doing this, because then they're like, oh man, is it going to go up? Should I sell? Should I buy? And that's when the trader mentality comes back. Versus they want that stability. You can do stability while at the same time have an increased frequency. So everybody wins. The people setting in the farms, they get paid, their fees there. And the people who are long-term holder and I want to buy and hold, they don't want to see their thing that they just see 300% dump 50%. They're okay with a retracement. They're just not okay with a bear market retracement of 60%. Because then they're going to be like, oh, now I need to panic sell. Because now it's not just a regular 20-40% retracement. It's like, okay, bear market. Does that make sense?
So the best deal that you could get if you wanted to sell would be not adding liquidity, but it would be selling when people are buying.
Yes, of course.
Right.
And which is why sometimes providing liquidity helps, because what you're doing is you kind of purposely know the trend of the market. You put the two coins there. That's what the big whales do. Remember, I mentioned it so many times. They buy the coin they want. Let's say, for example, you want a USD and the thing is moving up. You know what you want. So you put the two coins. You know people are putting USD that you want, and they're taking the coin that you want to, quote unquote, get rid of. But you don't want to sell. You just want to do it organically, in a sense where it's basically like you're saying, it's selling as people buy. It's not you murdering the price. It's you just put the scale and people just come eat into it. So it sells, and as it buys, and the price actually goes up, which is pretty cool. And then if you're armed with patience,
by providing liquidity, and they could be on PulseX, you could be farming while you do that. There's pairs there with stable coins with Pulse. So that's like if you feel you're getting within 30% of the top of the market, you could go into those farms, and as the price of Pulse rises, you'll end up with less Pulse and more stable coins. That is a good way to sell.
Yep. In the same way, we've been telling people, and I've been telling weeks people back, like, hey, we're closer to the bottom, and then we'll come in. So it's actually worse to be out of the market than in the market. So like Abdul just perfectly said, but in reverse, it was better to be in those pools that I mentioned, because you don't want to just be stuck with your stable and watch the price pump against you. Imagine the people that didn't, those who do the farm, right? Imagine they were not in those Hex farms. When Hex went up 400%, they got more USD, but they feel stupid because they wish they had more of the other coin because now the coin is more 300% more valuable. So it's about learning also where the trend of the market, because market only do three things, right? It either goes up, goes down, or kind of range. So when you're in that range, okay, cool, you can kind of yield farm anything. But if it pumps, you gotta ask it like, I need more of the coin, less of the USD. And if I'm near the top, like Abdul said, it's the reverse. I want more of the USD because my coins are now so much more valuable than where they were before. So it allows you to exit gracefully. I say gracefully because it's not like you're hiding anything. You're in the pool. We can see you. It's like you're trying not to murder markets, right? You're not trying to kill the golden goose. You're trying to get your egg and then let the goose go and produce more eggs for everybody else. That's it.
Does Crispy, do you have an answer to this question directed at you, asking by Mark? You mentioned farms can be taken down. What happens during that period? Is your LP removed, your ink rewards harvested, and you can remove LP from there, question mark?
Well, if you're in a farm, you basically staked your tokens. And so nothing happens until you do something, right? And so if the farm stops paying, you just stop accruing any additional rewards. Mm-hmm. So then you would unstake. In every protocol is going to be a little bit different, but when you unstake, you then revert it back to a regular LP pool, and then you would take down the LP and you have whatever tokens come out of that. And so when you actually are ending that quote unquote staked LP, you'll get paid. So.
Exactly.
It's still your LP tokens. It's just like you provided LP that wasn't in a farm, right?
Yep. Look at the LP like another form of certificate of deposit, because once you're in the farm, you can just kind of collect the reward while the coins are still in the farm, or you can collect the reward and then remove the LP completely out of the position. So it's kind of like a two-step process. The same when you come in, it's 2 steps, right? You have the coin that you need, you place them as a supply, you get the LP, which is another coin, and then you go stake the LP to earn the yield. Once you earn the yield, you can cash out the yield, leave the LP in the pool, cooking for more yield, or you want to be completely done, you cash out the yield, you remove the LP, and then you get them away so you can get your coins back. That's how you want to look at it. So but shout out to Mark. I think earlier, apology accepted. That's awesome. He said he wanted to apologize. He gave me criticism before, so apology accepted. I just read that for the legal situation. Appreciate it. Good men know when they're wrong, so I appreciate that. And
then I'll remind everybody that I'm still selling these physical coins that are the easiest way for people to onboard to Pulse Chain. It's a 1 ounce coin that has a wallet built into it, and it comes along with an instruction booklet that I wrote that can tell people how to get a hardware wallet, how to secure their coin, and how to bridge into Pulse Chain using a variety of methods, including buying Pulse with a credit card. And so it's good for beginners, but it's also good as a collectible for OGs or somebody who wants to play around with the 50-12 words decrypts into. So there's like a lot there, and I would say I've already sold about 200 ish, and then there's I believe there's another order coming in tomorrow for 200 more that have been bought. And so I've been mailing these out, and you can find more at soliduskey.com with the instructions of where to send $25 per coin if you're in the US, or if you're international, then it's $30 for shipping plus $25 per coin. And so far, like the majority of orders have been either 2 coins, 6 coins, which you get a free Ethereum coin along with it. If I run out of those, then you get a free Pulse Chain one along with it. And a lot of people have also ordered 12. So those are kind of the most common orders, and you can find more at soliduskey.com.
Soliduskey.com. Interesting. That's awesome.
And shout out to everybody who's been ordering these, because this is like one thing that helped me get more into crypto and to onboard lots of family and friends, is to have something physical where I could gift people crypto and just kind of like bridge my journey of being into gold and silver, and then being into crypto and having that aha moment that, you can have digital value, with or without the physical component. So
Interesting.
there you go.
Bang, bang.
And
let's see.
What else do you guys have to shill as we're wrapping up here?
Well, I think good macro kind of good conclusion is, again, markets are behaving as expected. We're looking good. Again, God forbid something happens, but from now to the election, I think it's telegraphed. Everything goes up, stock market goes up because either party needs to look good anyways. So I don't see an issue there. Gold's keep doing its thing. So Bitcoin and crypto will continue to do its thing. It's good to see the inflows, like I mentioned earlier, for all the ETF inflows coming in. Back to back 2 days inflow, 800 million. That's really cool. And again, only Tuesday. Usually, I like to see Wednesday and Thursday on my, because everybody knows I'm more weekly guy. I look at weekly chart when I do the demonstration. So Wednesdays and Thursdays are the key day because it shows the trend of the week. And right now, we started a very, very solid trend. As we speak, Bitcoin is already above 67 already, 67.4, trending towards 68K. The weekly candle looks good. Ethereum could be making a push towards 3,000 if everything goes well. So, which helps us as well. And we have the big event coming at the end of the month. Remember that. Shout out to those who are coming. If you're not coming, that's fine too. Just stay tuned. We're going to try to go live or take some pictures and stuff like that. So, we need maximum awareness. That will help us a lot as a community, period. I don't expect the case to be fully dismissed on that day, like we talked about earlier, like with Maddie. It's just a hearing, so we don't want to get too excited. But any good nuggets that we can take from there, if we can broadcast back to the community, that'd be great. It'll be a mini Hex event because, again, it's reporting that almost 200 people are going to be there. So it'll be good to catch up with some Hexicans as well. I think that's good. The yields are doing good. Unemployment rate is in a good place. Federal Reserve are going to cut rate 25 basis points. It's already telegraphed. That's good because we want slow and steady. And they're not going to do that until November. And there's no major news that the market has to worry about. And usually the market likes that. When there's no major news they have to worry about, it usually trend upwards because no bad news is good news, right? And sometimes no news in a good trend is still good news. And that's where we are now. And don't be surprised if we just get another 100+% pump. I see Hex doing what I said a couple weeks ago he would do. Did the run to 2 cents at the trend line, chilling there. It's doing the bull flag right now. Just consolidate, flushing some people out, get the people in. Remember, for them to buy, you need to sell. For you to sell, and somebody needs to buy. It's how it works. So when the price goes down, it also means somebody's buying because when somebody sells, somebody's buying that. So it's switching hands so that we can continue to the next leg. That's why we hover around that 1.5 because I think the next stop is 3 cents. And once we crack that, we're going to 5 cents combined Hex. So that's what I see in the immediate. I can see us do 3 cents by the event at the end of the month. It's doable, possibly more, but it's grooming nice because why not? Unless we have a Black Swan event, it's looking good. You know what I mean? And then first week of November, FTX people start getting paid. So like I said earlier, the biggest advertisement we can do is green candle. So when those people get their money back, what do you think they want to spend that money to? So
I think about only 20% of it hasn't been gobbled up by discount institutional buyers.
Yes.
Who are not. It's not going back to retail because retail already sold at a discount, but that's a lot of billions of dollars still.
Exactly.
It's lots of hundreds of millions, and these are people that some of them wish that their money was still in crypto, and so I think everything is pointing to the macro situation looking good for now.
Exactly. No, very well said. Because again, to the nature of how crypto is, because everybody knows that there's always a 20x to 30x multiplier for every dollar added. And people remember Hex went to all-time high with only anywhere between 60 to 80 million bucks. So it's like And now we have less coin in circulation than back then. So it's like, it doesn't take that much long to kind of run it. And what I love is that it's our way as a community to advertise like, hey, we're looking good. We're healthy. Look at the chart. It's trending back. Look at what he has done before. Chances are he could do it again, right? So if you have your fresh new money and you understand that we're one of the ones that was telling you not to waste your money on those places that ended up scamming you, and now we've been vindicated. And now if we can get that law situation taken care of, I think those are combinations of great advertisement for the people who got some of their money back, to push it back into crypto and then, start earning a nice yield. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, even if they push it back to ETH, it's good, because it's like, I look at it like a whole ecosystem. Because if ETH can run back to above 3K and going towards 4,000, it's going to lift us up no matter what, because of bonding liquidity.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's my.
And then, so there were a couple of apps that I found at Permissionless, which, by the way, was the best crypto conference I've ever been to. Everybody I ran into was technically oriented, and normally at some of these crypto conferences, like the bigger ones, it's filled with people who don't understand crypto as well as I do, but they're there to sell something. So it's like these business salespeople that like don't even know what they're selling, that you have to weed through those to get to the quality technical people. And at this one, it was just only technical quality people. So that was really incredible. And I had a blast, like meeting tons of different people and protocols. And I think the first day I was talking to people about crypto for about 15 or 16 hours in one day.
Oh, wow.
And it was like an incredible marathon. And shout out to my friend James, who I had met at a previous crypto conference, and he lined up like a shitload of introductions for me and him. And so we really got to know a lot of people. But there were two protocols, or there were two apps in particular that I like better than MetaMask for being like the user interface that anybody could use. And I can say that over the 3 days I was there, I successfully convinced both of the founders of both apps to add Pulse Chain. And so I'm not sure how quickly they'll be able to do that, but that it feels like a really big win in terms of us basically having, a better onboarding tool with this kind of stuff. So I don't want to give away all the sauce just yet, because I want to see that they follow through on it. But yeah, this could actually be, well, I don't know if I want to, yeah. I mean, so in a multi-chain world where a new user can actually, where it's usable, where crypto is usable, unlike MetaMask and unlike all these other things, you might find that being listed on Coinbase is like less important than being on the next wave of like how people can actually get into real crypto, which is where you hold your own keys.
DeFi is a thing for sure. So yeah, if we can get involved with more projects that support multi-chain DeFi, I think we can stand on our own.
And the most advanced version that I saw of that is where in the background it's able to pull from every centralized exchange except Coinbase, and it's able to pull from DEXs. And so there's, it felt like I was looking into the future and, seeing something where, yeah, if I understand, like if it's, if I'm looking in the details and it's showing me the path, then I can see that it's, it's basically giving me the best price, in these two different forms that I don't know that I've seen that connected before in terms of sexes and dexes all in one place. And so, yeah, it's very exciting. And I think it was particularly helpful, whoever made the price of Hex go up 25% on one of the days of the conference, because then I got to go around saying that Pulse Chain was the number 7 highest volume chain in the world that day. And so, and thanks to Fast Abdul as well for like providing me some like technical and information support when I was scrambling for the facts. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Happy to be your help desk.
That's freaking awesome. Another cool thing I want to remind everybody, which is awesome and put in the chat, is that not only I think it's the future, like Maddie said, but we already have, global DEX volume, and I think even just Uniswap, but global DEX volume already surpasses like what the exchange are doing. We talk about real volume, not the fake stuff that they do or whatever. There's more like Ethereum. Like if you look at the liquidity pool on the DEXs, like real money, it's already bigger than what sits on like exchanges. Just goes to show like, whoa, because many years ago, people used to make fun of us and make fun of because we were on the DEX, right? Oh, there's no volume. We can't swap for nothing. Now you go to Uniswap, you go whatever, you can see easily like $20 billion just sitting there, bid support and stuff. So and bonding liquidity. So I'm very, very excited, and the trend continues to grow. So imagine we start combining that with the multi-chain because they can tap to each other's liquidity. That's even better. Purely decentralized, no one single middleman to worry about.
Yeah. So if you're on Binance or Kraken or any of these others, this app that I was so impressed with, which isn't quite there yet, it's got some bugs in it, but it was basically able to utilize a KYC. Basically, you could KYC or not KYC, and it's able to use both of these sources of buying and selling. And so, whether it's that particular app and that company that, gets this right or somebody else, it's incredible that I think we're high enough in the ranks, like with Pulse Chain, we're a top 20 chain, and we have an incredibly strong community of YouTubers and people who, like and share stuff on Twitter that I think, if we keep playing nice with others, especially, and we get our SEC stuff out of the way, we could be set up, really well. So
can't wait.
With that, like on that positive note, let's go around the room and hear like where people can find you guys and follow you and all that. Crispy?
Yeah. Hey, so hexfire.io, come check out the site for members as well. Free visuals and data and charts and all that stuff. And believe it or not, guys, I kicked off my end of cycle planning. And believe it or not, so I'm deep into consults now, talking about, so what does an exit path look like and how do people actually execute that? So I do endorse the idea that get your plans in place now. Yeah, it might be a year and a half away, but have some plans in place. Know how, know what your plans are. That's it.
Very cool. Who's next? Kareem?
Oh, yeah. Very easy to find. So at Your Magic on the screen here on Twitter or Crypto5555 on Instagram if you have that. So, and I always tell people, stay steady, stay deck and chill. And more importantly, if you are coming to the event at the end of the month, I'm looking forward to see you and hang out with you for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pastor Jewel?
You can find me at 2phux.io. There's links to the Telegram there. Come in the Telegram. Ask me your questions about liquidity, about yield farming. I will never private message you. That is a scammer. Thank you.
Nice. Well said.
And I dropped your link in the chat here for people to follow you on X, which I hope they can link to the other stuff, other places to find you too. There.
Thanks, man.
And for me, it's mati.pls.fyi for all my links. And so also I want to like completely shout out and thank everybody out there who's like contributing more than they have to for Pulse Chain and for Hex. I see Silver the Antidote sponsoring Hex postcards. Both of those groups have given more than they've taken and given where they didn't have to. So shout out to them. You got Crypto 7, a week or two ago, he was doing multi-$100 super chats with Ivan on Tech in order to get him involved. Even when I think of, it's Pulse CoinList, I believe, that runs the Bridge Buddy bot or whatever it is. And so that is a way that people can maintain their privacy if they're bridging in new funds to a new address, in the sense that they're getting 3,690 Pulse the minute that they bridge over without using a faucet or anything. If they're bridging over Ethereum or USDC, it just appears in their wallet automatically, so that you have enough to not have to completely bridge over from Ethereum wrapped Pulse or dox one of your other wallets. And so there's so many examples. I'm probably missing a ton, but those are 3 that I can think of where, there are community members stepping up without even really getting any recognition. And it makes me really bullish on our community. So thanks to everybody doing that. And let me see here. So I got to get our thumbnail loaded in here. And until next time, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Good stuff, guy.
So yeah, have a good night. Gotta stay crispy. Like the bacon. You know what I'm saying?